here today. Of course, a number of us will have been here for 3 days and are really very close members of the PEFC family. I hope that everybody joining us for the first time today will also feel that PEFC is a close and inclusive family. Now, it's exciting being in Bali, and I'm sure that those of you who were here last night will have felt the earth move. And I think we were lucky that it was a short move, and our sympathy goes out to those in New Zealand who not only, of course, had the earthquake, but the tsunami as well. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm Peter Latham. I was elected as chairman of PEFC yesterday. I find the challenge for me very exciting. In reviewing the recent past, we have seen considerable success within PEFC. We've seen the number of country members grow. We've seen an increase in the area of forests certified to PEFC. We have seen growth in chain of custody, but we still have a challenge there. We need to match the supply of certified fibre with demand. Now, we're looking to address all the challenges forward within PEFC by reviewing our strategy, which will run for 5 years from 2018. Now, that's probably enough about PEFC in the past. Moving on to today and tomorrow, we have an exciting agenda which looks at the benefits of forests in a wider context than just protection of habitat and as a source of the most sustainable raw material. I think the challenge for certification is not only how we protect forests for all the landscape uses, the biodiversity, the habitat, and so on, but actually how we get the value all the way through the supply chain so that it is turned into demand for our products.
It's great to see everyone in the room. This is a stakeholder dialogue, so I think you'll have the chance over the next 2 days to really discuss, exchange views, vocalize your ideas, and get to know each other. But maybe just for some quick remarks about who's in the room. Who are we here? Who in the room is a PEFC member representative? Look around, introduce yourself to your neighbors. Okay. Who is from Indonesia? Who is from Asia? Outside Indonesia? Good. Okay, and who's from outside of Asia? So thank you to our partners for making this all possible, and thank you for taking the time to come to Bali and join us for these 2 days.
So we have 2 speakers. I'm going to give you the opportunity either to speak here or come up there. You prefer to speak from there. I'll give you the clicker as well. You're speaking first. So.
Well, first off, let me say I'm delighted to be here in Bali. It's a bit wet this morning, but the tropical paradise is, it'll be there when the sun comes out, and I'm very delighted to be invited to give the opening talk. Slightly daunted, but delighted to do so. I'm going to share work that C4 and partners have been doing on linking different forestry issues from the landscape perspective. And this is hot off the heels of the Global Landscape Forum that was completed yesterday, and I'll update you guys on some of the findings that came out of yesterday's major plenary in Marrakesh. And there are major migrations. These are caused not necessarily by just climate change, which is due, but also by economic opportunities. Increased climate variability, and basically in 30 to 40 years, the world that we know today is going to look somewhat different to what it does now. And so we at C4, we're 22, 23 years old, and we try and become operate as nimbly as possible to address the ever-changing forestry environment. And within SDGs, we've tried to focus on a whole series of new subject matters, and particularly food security, food nutrition and health, which is a program that I lead at C4. Water, energy and housing, we're working with a whole bunch of other institutions, looking at the integration of water in particular, and the impacts of energy consumption, particularly charcoal and fuel wood and sustainable management of forests for energy. That basically promote and enhance the environment and well-being for a broad subset of people who live in and around forest areas. And we work on a sort of paradigm of 3 pillars. Research for impact, the research that people like myself and my team generate. Capacity development, so we have a very strong graduate research program. And outreach and engagement. And again, outreach and engagement I'll touch on in a subsequent slide. As part of the C4 strategy, we try to align the forestry paradigm, the forestry focus, with as many of the SDGs as possible. And there's a series of info briefs that you'll find on the C4 table outside, which discuss the relative contributions of forest to each of the SDGs in turn. Obviously, some of them are a bit of a square peg in a round hole, but there are very close synergies with a broader set of SDGs, not just the forestry SDG, which is 15. We're looking at issues of food, water, equity, rights, gender, etc. And in terms of the context, I mean, in our C4 strategy, we're looking at basically integrating forestry in a broader landscape perspective to integrate a much broader set of land uses, integrating food security, timber production, and all of the forestry aspects that have often been managed in isolation. And we want to look at these things in a much more integrated approach. And also look at the big 2 silos of forestry and agriculture, and how these have been siloed to an extent where they are also and often mutually exclusive. A great example of that is the respective declarations on forestry and agriculture from New York in 2012. So really hot off the press. This came in about 4 a.m. The Global Landscapes Forum yesterday was held in Marrakesh, and the final plenary was handed over to the youth contingent. And basically they came up with a whole set of recommendations related to this landscape. And these are really 5 hours old. Basically they're talking about the issues of landscape approaches being under-theorized, but there is a vast body of knowledge, particularly generated through the work that C4 partners have been doing. But we now need to move beyond the concepts and move into implementation much more overtly and much more practically. There's an acknowledgement of the fact that you need to integrate multiple stakeholders into the process from the very outset. So, for example, a concession I worked in Cameroon, which is a political landscape, in fact, includes protected areas, community forests, community hunting zones, a formal protected area, and a private concession for oil palm. And getting those stakeholders together at the very outset has been responsible for that landscape being managed as a single entity, a single conservator, drawing together and compromising between those different land uses. Previous integrated interventions seem to fall out of favour because the next big challenge comes along. Now, landscape approaches have been in the development lexicon for 20 odd years, but really have fallen short of real implementation because there's always something else that comes up. We got distracted by red, we got distracted by other paradigms related to forestry. C4 certainly got distracted by red for a long time. And how can we predict what the next big challenge will be? I think there are issues of water. We are active participants in the Water Week initiatives with the Swedish authorities, who are developing a very strong landscape-focused water management. How can we then integrate some of these bigger issues that are emerging into our current landscape approach thinking? And we also need to extend evidence of impact. We need to develop metrics, whether it's based on GIS or remote sensing, but with local stakeholders able to be involved in that long-term monitoring and feedback into the loop, as I showed earlier, into what's working, what's not working, where are the trade-offs, where are the synergies. And in fact, Aki Steiner came up with a very nice summary of getting rid of the idea of trade-offs and synergies and talking about opportunities. And I think we need to look at the opportunities with local stakeholders and making people sort of win more and lose less in many respects, because there's always going to be compromises and negotiations at this landscape scale. So I'm just going to move on quickly to a little bit of work we're doing on forest and food security. And about, I think it was 2011, we started to look at links between biodiversity, not just agro-biodiversity, but the role of biodiversity, forests and trees, particularly trees on farms, and their roles in the contribution to food security and nutrition, and particularly dietary diversity. So beyond food security in terms of calories, but in terms of food security in terms of dietary diversity. Now we know that many NTFPs, non-timber forest products, plant resources, etc., play an incredibly important role for local diets and local income too. There are very few data, because the data to collect this information on consumption and sale is very limited. We know about the roles of bushmeat. Bushmeat is an incredibly important resource in areas where there are no livestock. The fats, micronutrients from bushmeat are also incredibly important. And freshwater river basins provide an enormous amount of fish. But these don't sort of operate in their entirety, and they're all linked in many respects. So if you go to a forest area, you'll see people managing and collecting these resources together. But there are also issues of how they interact in terms of seasonality, how they relate to off-farm income, and what's the relative importance of each of these resources in terms of agriculture and in terms of their contribution to global household food security. And so we've started to generate a whole series of data-rich papers which have generated the evidence, which has started to move the paradigm slowly towards the acceptance of forests and trees for food security and nutrition. The major paper that was produced in 2014, it was a findings from 23 countries in Africa. We overlaid nutrition data from the USAID's demographic health survey data with MODIS remote sensing data, and found a fairly robust correlation between proximity to trees and better dietary diversity in children under 5. In terms of gender, a systematic review, we had another systematic review we undertook on the relationship between women's representation on forest management committees. Unfortunately, most of the data is focused on India and Nepal, because that's where most of the papers are published from. But the involvement of women and men in a fairly clear balance shows much better resource governance and conservation outcomes. I think this has a huge impact not only on forestry and fisheries, as the title of the paper suggests. And we also did a global analysis of gender using the Poverty and Environment Network data, and showed there was a very clear differentiation between gender roles in terms of collection of diverse forest foods and also animal protein foods. You'd kind of think that was obvious, but it isn't as obvious as it's nice to have data to prove it, basically. So, getting the message out, we have a very active media and comms folks. There are some here, I think, today. Basically, we use our science to get it out as much as possible, blogs, Twitter, and we have proven that if you publish a paper and you blog it and tweet it, people will read it, basically, and that makes a huge difference. This week, we've been involved in training journalists, specifically for this meeting. The journalists at the back there, would you just smile and wave? And so they're going to be active in engaging with people here during the next 2 days. And it's great to see that young, ambitious journalists can benefit from the science writing training that our organisation and our partners can provide. So a final slide. So what role for forest certification? And I think this is, I haven't mentioned it in terms of the whole landscape approach, but I think obviously timber production certification schemes have a great role to play in terms of this broader landscape approach. There are biodiversity conservation and enhancement benefits, ecosystem services benefits, local empowerment, employment, and welfare benefits, the respective indigenous people's rights, all ingrained into the forest certification schemes. Issues of access and sustainable use, particularly for indigenous peoples. And this equates essentially to sustainable forestry. This is exactly what we're aiming towards in many respects. So I'll leave it there, and thank you very much for giving me the time to present. Thank you.
Good morning, Salam Pagi. I'm delighted to see supporter, friend Hans Gulsma here. It's important because Hans was the driving force, the key player in our designing and setting up Australian forest standards, which is a part of the PEFC. I say that because at that time, when Hans was leading it as a hands-on researcher, I saw it and I said that is to me, at that time, to me, as a sovereign nation, Australia's declaration that we know our forests best, and we know how to manage it, and we intend to do so. And good to see you, Hans. That's the point I want to talk to you about today. It's very close to my heart because I was born poor, so I know something about it. So there are two fundamental challenges. There are many challenges we face. There are two which are very critical, into which forestry is very central and can play a central role. And we are not playing that role well. And the argument is today that we have failed to make that because of many romantic notions and misplaced views of politics. And I am forgive me if I sound excited because I represent Noah. So I just put my hands and saw the last answer. I remember I was born, but I remember I am now. So these are fundamental things, and the argument is we can use forest and wood product much better than we are doing to that purpose. The two central things we need to reflect. In a nation that has reduced poverty for its people, have done so only when they have increased economically, mainly in that country. There's no, we have to build an economy. So what do those two forests offer? One offers very little. The best model the forest might offer all these things about forest. Biodiversity, food, water, ecosystem services, and that four-letter word called wood, which many of you are reluctant to utter. Even PEFC seems difficult to say the word wood, but I'm just saying that now. But many of those functions can be achieved both by native forest or with a planted forest if you planted them accordingly in the landscape. They are not unique to native forest. But let me take two cases out of those long lists: the non-timber forest product and the much talked about payment for ecosystem services. Yes, a pathway to poverty. That's my point of country. Not the dependence. We heard some wonderful evidence story about the extraordinary dependence of the people for those values that forest. But I'm saying that dependence is a tragedy. Many diverse estimates show repeatedly the proportion of the value of the non-timber forest product to the livelihood of those people is about 30%. 30%. Remember that? 25 papers easily comes up. C4 conducted a magnificent scientific study involving 8,000 households, 24 countries, and some 35 parts of Australia, great piece of work. And they came up with 27.5%. They corrected the data from 30 to 27%, 5%. They included in that non-timber forest product of PES and even came in for the much lower rate. And my dear friends, you know what is 27.5% means to those poor people? That's here on my left-hand side. That's in rupee. For a man earning the World Bank's poverty line. How many people on earth do you know can come out of poverty with this coin? Anybody put their hands up? So that's what we are really fussing about. We are fussing about this value, the real value that pays for the fruits of kids' education, and this is what we're talking about. Next. Reason is, most product of this kind, if you ever went to the region, whereas I have spent lots of time in those regions, you will see that many of those low value commodities are sold by the poor for the next wretched poor. You can never make money by selling something to the next poor guy, can you? If you want to make money, but sell something for the rich, because the tourists rip them off. Recommend, highly recommend. Right? But if those products are value added, who are the beneficiaries of the annual products transport? Rhinoceros horns, tiger penis, any other virtuous things. Who are the beneficiaries? Do they have a share in that market? Do anyone know anyone in Africa doing that commodity or party? So doing that extensive research, we have no new knowledge about the ecology, ecophysiology, or the production potential of those resources, because that's not politically correct. If you manage the resources, it becomes non-natural. And European ecologists argued to loan of money. We must go back to nature. Yes, go back to nature, to misery and poverty. How many of you want to go back to nature and sacrifice your living standard? Put your hands up. Stop preaching them. Next one, payment for efforts and services. We are assuming this will pay to get the poor out of misery. And wonderful colleagues produced this extraordinary number, $11.5 trillion, many times from the EU economy. This was before Brexit and the bankruptcy of parts of Europe. This must be even more wonderful number. Revise it. Where was his money? Go for the page. This euphoric, cloudy, cuckoo's land numbers was poured out. This particular paper I cite, not in any degree of animosity, because it's authored by very distinguished organizations. Just don't want to name them here. I will do so after a couple of years in hand. So it got cited and cited and cited and cited. Many developing countries got misled for such numbers, and they dropped the ball on sustainable management. They were chasing this cloud land, the Father Christmas that will arrive in the Hindu land or the Muslim land. The Father Christmas never came. $1.1 trillion. So we really need to think about this a bit more seriously. Then we have the carbon for the poor. Red plus, and various other nomenclatures. I read through two things that Sarah's invitation forced me to really read a lot about this, and to talk extensively to my great colleagues, some of them are here in the audience, working in Southeast Asia, on the ground, and in Africa, to tell me what is it on the ground. No one can tell me an example of this wonderful monetized carbon that has anybody around. Please tell me if you have examples why you are here with that on my house. So this is the issue. Forests are fundamental to life. There's no doubt about it. They provide invaluable services which we can never ever measure. But the key question is, are we helping the poor or the poor? There are 400 to 500 million of them in the world landscape. Are you really developing anything for them? So, my contention is, non-human forest products may save some people out of further misery. Maybe they would have been even less than this. I grant you that. And the payment for ecosystem services looks to me like a fantasy. It is a Father Christmas, not turning to be a fantasy. I hope I'm wrong, and that would be lovely for me to see I'm fundamentally wrong. I'm very happy with the premise. I have made a commitment to myself some years ago that I will do this sort of chat, and if I'm wrong about 70% of the time, I will die peacefully. If I got it right 30% of the time. But please give me the feedback later. And the 30%. In any case, I intend to die peacefully. Small growers are playing a great role. They're largely neglected. There is bureaucracy. The exotic actors, including some certifying organizations, have their own agenda. Uniform or superiority. We really need to look at that very carefully. So here comes what can we do? We know we can manage forests in short rotation, medium rotation time in Tasmania, and long rotation of the truck office in Kalimantan. We can do so. A conservation and production economy can coexist. There's no doubt about it. If you manage the forest for conservation, it has a steady state with the carbon. It often becomes a tech carbon law. If you are working forest, that the forest harvested sustainably and a lot of regrowth, you got a much greater total carbon tax. And if that wood is used for all those good things we like, that's the most efficient carbon store you can think about. Every piece of furniture in wood is a carbon store. Why are we not thinking about that? Why do you think about carbon and climate change only and only about deforestation? What's wrong with wood? Wood is good. Stop treating as a whole letter word. In the chairman, in his introductory speech, he never said the word wood. It's a sustainable resource. The two-page program of PEFC Forest do not contain the word wood. They have sterilized it. It's just a four-letter word. But what are you doing? You are growing wood, cutting down, pulping it, chipping it, selling it, making a living. Why don't you say it loud and clear? We growers don't have a hang-up. Why do we have a hang-up about wood? Wood is the most efficient carbon. Let's read. It's 1,770 times better than aluminum window frame. We should ban aluminum window frame. We should ban it. You might have to go over. PEFC award-winning photograph of a school in Manor in UK. It was right. We didn't borrow those. But I also hope we have two things more to think here. One is I hope those children learning in that grade school are taught that this wonderful wood in the school has come by somebody cutting down a tree. And that is not a criminal offense. And they are not taught the being theology alone. They are taught something more about it. But that wood in that school, wood in the school, when it is finished, it's lying in the school. Can be reused, shipped, depending on the speed. It's up to you. And if you still can't do it, you can use the source of energy, the rich source of energy. And if you still can't use the wood, put in a municipal tip. I can assure you, depending on the species, that carbon will remain there for decades and for centuries. Centuries. You could fly over Mumbai, Lagos, Philippines, Rio de Janeiro, or even part of Jakarta, and take an aerial photograph of this. Millions of people living in slums. I have walked in them in Mumbai for various reasons. They now live in government of India or government of many other countries, Nigeria. Just imagine. They build a lot of houses for the poor. China is building 35 million new dwellings for its people during this 5 years. Imagine 25% of those dreadful constructions will be using wood, engineered wood products. Imagine what India could achieve in terms of rural economy and carbon sequestration, rather than getting wood, exporting logs from all sorts of dubious places. How much more India could do? Many other nations could. Why can't we do this? So, the dominant idea of cocoa forest policy largely failed to field. Romantic notions and devolution has got upper hand. Wood has to be neutral and silence in global dialogue. It's a product of wood. And private sector has been excluded, partly because of their own behavior or the real inability to communicate what they do. They have largely failed to do so. This has diminished the potential of forestry. There's a growing middle class right here in Asia, 1.3 billion. And they all want more wood, more tissues, more product copies. And thousands of people are growing wood in small plots all over the world. And I just want to ask this question, can PEFC advance their life by thinking beyond the boundaries of certification? I thank you.
In the very early days, people were saying, well, we need to focus on production and we need to make sure that the foresters and forestry community can make money out of this, have livelihoods out of this. And then there was a question of where do we find that balance between the various pillars of sustainability to make sure that the needs of the planet as a whole, as well as the needs of those who are actually doing work day to day and living on the resource, living from the resource, are adequately met. And I feel that as we've moved into the landscape approach, we are probably having a similar process of evolution as to what does it actually mean for various people, and do we have a full understanding of the issues. So, when we talked about the gap, what I've taken away from this is that we have several gaps that we need to address, not just in these days, but to start thinking about. I'd like you to think about it as the sessions go on. There's the gap between the science and the practice gap. How do we have the feedback loop here? There's also the gap between the knowledge and the information, which is available. Lots of studies are then put together into where do we actually find the knowledge that comes out of the information, and is that information really going to help us move forward in a meaningful way? There is, of course, very clearly the question about what is the impact? What is the impact of what we're trying to do here on the local communities and on society as a whole? Raise acceptance of the forestry role in security. And my question would have been to you is, who needs that acceptance, who needs that awareness, where, and who actually makes the decisions? And that was one of the key fundamental areas why the forest certification movement at the start diverged so quickly, because for some people it was, we make these decisions on behalf of society and we decide what's best. And for us in our particular movement, it was, we do this from a bottom-up approach and make sure that the decisions are made locally, the benefits are local. And I think in a way, when we're looking at the whole landscape approach, that is one of the key areas we still need to address. And mindful of the time, I'm looking at Sarah. You got that? We have. Oh wow. So maybe based on those observations, Terry, would you like to add some comments?
Sure. I mean, your last point about the forestry community influencing the nutrition community and vice versa. It's been an interesting process. There have been two major consultations. The UFO Commission, the Global Forestry Expert Panel, on the role of forest and food security to inform the forestry community, because there's still a lot of, words not ignorance, but lack of knowledge about the potential roles of forest food linkages. And the current report that I'm working on, I chair actually a high-level panel of experts to the Committee of Law for Food Security is to influence the nutrition community on the role of forests. By bringing those two communities together, using the evidence that we've generated, and I think that's the key thing. Once we started to generate evidence, people started to think in different ways. Suddenly the response is, I have no idea where these evidence is. And so the next layer is very, very comprehensive data-rich papers now need to be sort of ground truth. So the next stage is we're looking at what exactly are these relationships, what kinds of forests, what kinds of trees, what kinds of relationships, and we're finding some really interesting parallels of better diets are actually independent of income. So the poverty angle is an interesting one as well, because we're finding that people who live in proximity to forests, which traditionally tend to be poorer members of society, actually have better access to diverse and nutritious diets. And as soon as there's a level of economic development, that dietary transition I mentioned, certainly in Indonesia, and it's happening elsewhere, results in poorer diets. And so it's getting that two communities who traditionally have never spoken together, the nutrition community and forestry community, together by generating evidence, and it's starting to precipitate in dialogue between the two communities, and it'll culminate next year in the Committee of Law Food Security meeting in October, where the policy implications of forestry and nutrition will be discussed at the country level. So the CFS is a country-focused, country membership organisation. So individual countries will look at their own policies related to forestry and nutrition and see whether what interventions can be made at the policy scale and at the practical scale.
One of the questions I would ask, and then I'll come to you, Fedor, is the question of something like the Global Landscape Forum. One of the key areas here is the information, and maybe information is a gap here, and how do we communicate these issues in a way that people can actually understand it. You know, when I was a little boy, I knew what my body was like, but I didn't really know how it really worked until I went to biology class and learned all about how the heart works and everything else, so we get much more information. So how do we, sometimes in a way I think we're getting more and more detail in the information that we collect, but do we then sort of lose sight of the whole concept of the whole body, and how do we communicate that information in a meaningful way for politicians to make some decisions with other stakeholders so that we can move forward? Is something like the Global Landscape Forum one of the starting stepping stones for that, or where else do we move to get those decisions made and to ensure that people feel valued to the landscape approach?
I think the value of the Global Landscape Forum, the GLF, has put the concept in the minds of many, many people. I watched the closing plenary last night at 4:30. I've got this time, but the basic message was that they wanted to reach 1 billion people. I find that a little ambitious, but what kind of people, to what end? And I think that we need a little bit more focus, and I think that came up very clearly in the final plenary in the recommendations, that we need to move beyond the rhetoric and towards a much more cogent approach in terms of policy implementation and linking the individual sectors of forestry, agriculture, and other sectors. And one gratifying thing that the GLF has managed to do is to convene power, bringing the private sector, bringing the development sector, bringing donors together, and getting them into the same room. We had a fabulous set of sessions at the IUCN Congress, Conservation Congress in June into July. And it's the first time that we actually convened a series of events which included so many different stakeholders. Never would have had the private sector talking to the conservation organisations to even 2 or 3 years ago. And I think the convening power of the GLF and other forms of an event have precipitated and catalysed those dialogues. And the silos are slowly breaking down, and I think that the time is now right to look at the policy implementation and scientific implications of that.
Dr. Namia, you presented the case very strongly that this is very much to do about raising people out of poverty, and whether a lot of the initiatives that are taking place there, they're offering and calculating value, but actually, as you showed graphically, the result is not there. It's not something that people can, doesn't result in food or education and so on. When we look at the gap, would it be fair to say that your major concern here is the gap between the expectations of what people are doing and the reality on the ground in terms of how it impacts on people, so they actually have a sustainable livelihood, is not sustainable poverty, but a sustainable livelihood which is well above sort of a poverty line, where people actually want to stay in the countryside, live in the countryside, because they have a livelihood there which actually keeps them there. Is that the key premise, or have I misinterpreted that?
The point then is that two things in it, the expectation and what certification can do in the first part. Expectation is a difficult, it's a peculiar thing to manage. But in the entire journey through this poverty-stricken landscape around the world, as much as I can, I found the remarkable expectation of those people are exactly the same as you and I. They are not different. So they're exactly the same. Their awareness may have diminished the scale of thinking. They want better food. They don't want the wife to die the next birth of the child. They don't want the baby to be dying of diarrhea and dysentery. They don't want that. They do want mobile phones and a television antenna. And if they can, they do. But the expectations are the same. Nobody wants to have a longevity of 40.5 years in those parts of the world. The rest of us enjoy 80 plus. And we keep on saying, so we have to enlighten the awareness of those people in expectation, not sing along this perpetual song or the dependence. And that expectation can only be raised by bringing an economic agenda, the real money. You got to make it in a decent, proper, sustainable way. There is no other way. China lifted about 400 million people out of poverty. India lifted about 250 or so, 300 million they say. It's entirely because of economic growth. That's the price to pay. So that's one. The expectation is the same. They have their same expectation, every one of us have. And we need to understand that. Second one, if you think wood, despite all those difficulties I am aware of, is a possibility, then people like all of you and the certifiers and the C4, my great friends and FAO, all have to narrate this more loud and clear. And that reluctance to use wood-based economy marginalize the private sector who invest in has never been in a profitability program. So we got to really have a revolution of ideas from the third view of romanticization and inward-looking glorification to externalize the reality of this and enable those people with expectations will grow. The expectations in which I grew up as a child in a family which was the lower end of the lower middle class. I go there periodically. The expectations of my siblings' grandchildren are as bad as my own children who grew up in Australia. It's not different. They converge. So we have been narrating a view of those of us who live in great comfort in air-conditioned ecosystems and in advocating that's where the noble savage. I never met a noble savage in my life. I never met a man who was very happy with a diarrhea-stricken child. So it's impossible. So experience is the same.
Maybe as I go through the list, you could raise your hand so everyone knows who's who. So first I'd like to introduce Dr. Rufi. Dr. Rufi is the Director of Processing and Marketing of Forest Products at the Directorate General of Sustainable Forest Production Management, the Ministry of Environment and Forests for the Republic of Indonesia. Lucy Kajagan is the Director for Sustainability and External Affairs at APO Group. Oops, sorry. Up here. Next we have Maharaj Muthu, who's who's the president of the Roman Forum and the chairman of INBAR, the International Network for Bamboo and Rattan. Next we have James Kalman. James is the president director of the Moores Role in Indonesia and responsible for managing the business. Mr. Bambang Widiantoro, welcome, is a member of the board for the Indonesian Association for Forest Concessionaires here in the country. And last but not by no means least, we have Charles Barber. And Charles is the director of the Forest Legality Initiative and the Forest Program at the World Resource Institute, WRI. Charles, as moderator for the session, I'll pass the floor over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I've been asked to do two things here as the moderator. One, to give a brief overview of this fabled landscape, the international political landscape, and then moderate my distinguished colleagues here to explain to me why I'm perhaps not quite correctly and completed what I've said already, and to provide their own perspectives. And we're going to do this in a sort of talk show style, so we're hoping for brief comments and a little bit of interaction. But I'll just in 5 minutes or so of thinking about this overall. So I divide history up into sort of prehistory back in the 1980s, sort of period of the 1990s, and then what's happened since then. If you go back 30 years or so, tropical deforestation in particular became a big political issue in the 1980s. So this is, people worried about forest management for centuries and things, but it was really kind of an international political issue then. There's a lot of focus on Brazil, Malaysia, Indonesia, lots of activists and celebrities, a lot of conflict about that. It wasn't just in the tropics. In my own country, in the U.S., there were a lot of battles about this in the Pacific Northwest, in Tasmania and Australia. It became an issue that people were thinking about distinctively as an international issue and as a broadly an issue of broad concern on all sides. But that was the time in the late 70s, and particularly in the administration of Jimmy Carter in the U.S., the issue of international human rights got a lot more focus. So you began to also see people talking about the rights of indigenous communities and forest-dependent communities. That was during that period of campaigns against the World Bank about some of the more egregious projects they had been supporting, like the BR-364 road through Rondônia in Brazil, the transmigration program here, that was causing a lot of deforestation. Concerns about biodiversity. That term was coined by E.O. Wilson in those days, in that time. You had a lot of responses to that. The Tropical Forestry Action Plan, older people will probably remember that as a kind of a technocratic response from the World Bank and my own organization when we were just starting. You had the ITTO being formed and growing then, the International Tropical Timber Organization, and a lot of proposals for sustainable forest management as a middle way between calls for banning and boycotting tropical timber and other old-growth timber, and business as usual, which clearly wasn't acceptable because deforestation rates were rising so highly. And that was, voila, where you got the birth of certification systems as ways to provide credibility and standards for what would be sustainable forest management. What are we really talking about? A lot of those ideas are still with us today. In the 90s, and just before it, you got the end of the Cold War, people turning to look at a range of different global issues aside from those of the Cold War. You had the recognition of global environmental challenges, that these were truly global issues: climate change, biodiversity loss, desertification, the need for global financing and cooperation. You had the Rio Conventions, well agreed in 1992, which, as we know, are still with us, in particular, focused this week on the Climate Change Convention. Financing institutions like Global Environment Facility. A lot of attempts to negotiate a convention on forests at that time. It never came to anything. So that was kind of the high water mark of governments sitting down together in the room with the United Nations and agreeing on something, and everyone else would follow them and do what they said. That turned out not really to be the way the world works. And in the last 15 years, we've seen a lot more focus on climate change, the whole red bus side of things, that somehow we can save forests by paying people to keep them standing, and if we have climate change, and we've seen a lot of finance and ideas around that. It's had its ups and downs. A focus on illegal logging has been something that I think has been a big focus. We're going to hear more about that here in Indonesia and what's been done here. And not just as an environmental problem, but sort of emblematic of despotic, corrupt, and authoritarian regimes. You can go back, I used to live in the Philippines, to Marcos, and what happened under Marcos, what happened under Suharto here, Hun Sen in Cambodia, the Taib family in Sarawak, Rubenang Hijau in the PNG and Solomon Islands governments. These were some pretty bad characters running around in governments, and illegal logging became kind of a marker for not just environment issues, but looking at weak governance and corruption and issues like that. That's still with us today. More and more we see agriculture encroaching on forests, and it's not about how do you manage permanent forest estate, but whether you keep it or not at all. Do you just chop it down and plant oil palm and things like that? And much of our timber now is coming not from sustainable forest management, but from the wholesale conversion of forests to industrial agriculture. You have decentralization that's happened in many countries. Philippines, Indonesia, and Peru being examples of three forest countries in the 80s, 90s, and more recently in Peru, where the management of forests has been decentralized from central government. We have all those technological developments, remote sensing, supply chain traceability, big data crunching, the social network, all the things that didn't exist 15 years ago that affect all of how we basically manage things. So you see, what is the forestry sector reacting to now? It's a lot more complicated. You've still got hard law and treaties. It is important. Some of you will know that the CITES Convention recently just listed more than 250 species of timber last month on its Appendix 2. That's a real big change. And but that's only part of the picture. Like we see in Marrakesh this week in the climate meeting, everyone's reacting to the crazy election in the United States and saying, well, we don't have to do everything through the Paris Agreement. We can do it at the subnational level and private sector, and people looking for other ways forward, and those things don't work. We've had all these soft law things that people should be important about. The Sustainable Development Goals, we'll be hearing more about that. The UN Climate Summit, the New York Declaration on Forests. Specialized agencies still important, like the Food and Agriculture Organization, still playing a strong technical role. But many new things that are hybrid organizations with the private sector, NGOs, governments, local governments working together. You look at the Bali Challenge on forest landscape restoration, our own Global Forest Watch, which we host with 90 partners around the world. The IUCN, Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in the United Nations, where indigenous people are given a seat pretty much similar to nation states. These are all setting norms, and then you have all the standard setting organizations. That's all over here. The PEFC, Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. Private sector bodies like the Consumer Goods Forum are playing in this space. The Global Timber Forum. Advocacy groups are still important. A lot of people still care what Greenpeace thinks about things, or Global Witness. They set this. And then there are think tanks. We heard this morning from CSIRO and C4. So then in the end, just finally, what's driving the forest sector today? That's what's happening. So what is actually driving it? This is my hypothesis. So government still counts. Regulation is still a lot what people think about. What are the rules? What do we have to do? Whether they're coming from international trade agreements, or they're coming from national regulations, industry still pays a lot of attention to that. I mean, I'm not in the industry, you are, and I think you know that well. But consumer expectations is a really important thing. People want to know where does their stuff come from and how is it made and what is the impact on it. That goes for petroleum, that goes for minerals, that goes for foodstuffs, that goes for clothing that you wear. People want to know whether the environmental dimensions, political dimensions, all of those things, gemstones, you name it. And so you have a lot of risk mitigation strategies across that whole set of things. And finally, I'd say that what's really happened is a lot of radical transparency. Information is available on a lot of things that was not available 10, 20, 30 years ago. And as a famous politician in the United States once said, he's probably rolling over in his grave right now, but everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And that's very much the way things are going in the world now, I think. We can have different opinions on the policies and economy versus the environment and things, but we should be working from the same page, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good morning to all of us. Today I would like to share our Indonesian experience in developing the timber legality assurance system, or in Indonesia we call it Sistem Verifikasi Legalitas Kayu, or SVLK. Maybe you as Is it only about the legality or what? Maybe it was kind of a misname because this is a trade name, Indonesian name, trade for legality. It's not only about the legality, it's also about the sustainability. Because in the system there are 14 standards, starting from the certification for sustainable forest management, the forest concession, until the small and the micro industry in the forest product processing, and they have their own standard. And why we need Indonesia need the SPLK? Because it was starting in the 90s. Indonesian forest product has not had not a good image in the international trade. And then in 2001 there is a Bali flag, if you remember. And then starting then we realized that law enforcement as a hard approach in attacking illegal logging and illegal trade is not easy. So we complement that with a soft approach, with the approach on the certification, but what we call the soft approach. And this stated as the commitment of Indonesia to eradicate the illegal logging and illegal trade, to improve the governance and also to increase the credibility of Indonesian forest product. And the SPLK is actually it's not a new one, it's not new regulation, because it's follow all the law and regulation in Indonesia, either in a forest concession or in a forest industry. And it's also follow the regulation on the labor and all taxation and all the things like that. So if the industry follow all the law and the regulation, they have no problem to get the certification. And it was successful because in our document, previously only stated that it's only free legal document, and then starting at the 15th of November at 0001, it stated that it's also the bird flag T appears in the document. And it means that every shipment to European Union have to be flag T license approved. I think this is my introduction to this one. And also the challenges. The challenges is getting the flag T license is not difficult, but to maintain it's not easy also. The challenge is we have to be consistent with this one, especially with the small and micro enterprises. We facilitate them, encourage them to form a group and to find funding to get certification. And then also we need also the commitment of the AU to be fair and to be not only implement this only in Indonesia, but also to other countries that also exported product to European Union, because in EUDR principally there is a due diligence, and Indonesia with the flag T license it's considered that no risk, so it has no due diligence at a minimum. Thank you very much.
Allow me to begin by saying that many of the points you raised earlier in your introduction about the intergovernmental agreements, the UN treaties, the conventions, they stirred a lot of still fresh memories and feelings of frustration about working in the UN. As an alumna, I still keep the faith in the flag, but at the same time, I am very much aware of how constricted and constricting the system can get from the stifling bureaucracy to the inertia, to the perennial lack of resources, and of course the heavy political interests that severely curtail the effectiveness of intergovernmental instruments. But having said that, there are a couple of lessons to be learned from the work of some of the UN bodies on how the environmental agenda, including forests, have been increasingly mainstreamed into the global development agenda. So first, forest protection is ultimately a development issue. We can't speak of halting deforestation as if this is a complete call by itself. I think we have all realized that deforestation is first and foremost a socio-economic agenda. The presentations, the keynotes earlier this morning made a big point about this. You know, a big part of the deforestation that has happened earlier was driven by legitimate land use plans that supports national economic development goals. Now, here in Indonesia, between 30 and 40 million people, approximately, still live below the poverty line. And what this means is that in most cases, at the grassroots level, deforestation is simply about the need for livelihood. So sustainable forest management has offered us a way to reframe the non-deforestation call in a manner that recognizes the development of the socio-economic aspects of forests as a resource. Now, the second lesson that I would like to mention is that as we try to make a stronger case for forests, whether in the UN system or on the global political agenda, the answer perhaps is not by focusing on forests. In the summary that Charles shared with us prior to this session, referring to a dialogue that was called the Pocantico Dialogue, there was a point that was made about the need for a unifying message on forests to reach the constituencies so that forests become high on the political agenda and that it becomes politically relevant. But years of leading strategic communications and advocacy work at the UN Environment Program have taught me that it's not about the environment, it's about food, it's about water, health, it's about the warming climate, and the need to redefine the whole notion of well-being, which is very different from the predominant consumerist view of what is a good life. So it is in the same vein that in the case of forests, it is not just about forests, it is in fact about food security, water, livelihood opportunities, air quality, health, and the warming climate. In short, it's about the impact on human lives, particularly those in the underserved communities. So the point I'm making here is that there has got to be a holistic view and about a strategy of integrating or embedding forests into the broader sustainable development agenda if we are to scale up the impact of the forestry sector. Now, so this brings me to the point of which policy instrument or framework resonates more with our business strategy. In reality, it's not one or two, but it's a combination of a few that could include intergovernmental instruments or frameworks, or voluntary multi-stakeholder coalitions, and of course, more importantly, internal business drivers. Because at the end of the day, all this have got to make good business sense. But let me first cite one that has not been mentioned in your examples, Charles, earlier. And it's called the Green Economy Framework. It was actually developed by the former executive director of the UN Environment Program, Achim Steiner. When he joined UN, the very first thing that he did was basically to reframe the environment agenda into an economic agenda. For him, it was a way of recognizing the interlinkages among the three pillars of sustainable development, environmental, social, and economic. And at the same time also recognizing that the political reality that it's the economic agenda that drives the environmental pillar. So the green economy is essentially about decoupling economic growth from negative resource impact. So it recognizes that developing countries have socio-economic aspirations, and it allows them to pursue this within the planet's regenerative capacity. within the planet's safe operating space. So this is essentially also the long-term strategy of our company. It's about decoupling business growth from further calls on natural capital, particularly forests. So we're turning to science and research to improve productivity, and we're diversifying our product lines, moving towards high-value products so that we can grow the business, even if eventually we may not be able to grow our plantation base. So we're also increasingly moving towards an expansive view of what is a business case to sustainability, or more specifically to sustainable forest management. So looking at or exploring natural capital valuation, including ecosystem services and all the rest of the externalities that previously were not included if you're just looking at commercial productivity. So it's about having a broader and a more long-term business case than what is normal with the business sector right now. Now, finally, apart from the green economy framework, of course we have the 2030 Global Development Agenda, or what we more commonly refer to now as the Sustainable Development Goals. This is also where I see the biggest opportunity to scale up the social, economic, and environmental impact of forestry. The SDGs by purpose are inclusive. So it allows us and actually enables us or encourages us to work across the entire spectrum of stakeholders, from governments, private sector, and civil society. So the SDGs are also by design integrated. So, and it's mirrored in the forestry sector in the way that we're increasingly moving towards the landscape approach, where we recognize the multiple values that exist in a particular landscape and how we should be working towards the integration, at least in the balance, towards a balance of all this.
I wish to get straightforward into the challenge. The challenge is that forest sector, forestry, forests, which cover 1/3 of the planet, have no UN organization. Right from Rio in 1992, so many people have been wanting, challenging forest, but no World Forestry Organization. The only thing that came up was certification as a result of people getting dissatisfied with the Rio, one of the biggest collections about environmental development. And when I was there, I found this President of United States of America, and I found Al Gore, as an NGOist. So finally, the Indian Prime Minister was about to fire Indian Environment Minister and the Malaysian representative. Two of them to CNN said, "What can we do? Americans only care for..." Okay. You remember, everybody remembers that. And so finally, the CNN, because there was bush, they care only for bushes and what was the name of the Vice President of US? They care for bushes and quails and not for the forest as a whole. And in fact, in the UN system, later on, has been set up UN effort, or effort, what effort? I don't know. First forest forum, or some forum, OIC, but nothing, about six staff members there, and or 7 maybe. And I'll be afraid, please let me stop quickly, simply tell my friends from Japan that as a result of my dissatisfaction or satisfaction, they helped me to set up JEF along with Gustav Specht of WRI and the World Bank. So JEF is searching, but JEF, but not forest. JEF is not forest. Global Environmental Facility is not Global Environmental Forestry. Okay, so that is JEF. And then UN Forum is nothing. ECOSOC, one of the less than a norm, some big NGOs are much bigger than that. And a lot of people think that I had at Bangkok last week, 10 days ago, should have been with me in Marrakesh. Nobody thought, what did you say, UNFF? They didn't know in Marrakesh. I just come directly from Marrakesh. So there is no world. Of course, you will all come out with a big gun and hit me before I leave the room. You bloody Maharaja, what do you think? You are a king? You were head of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Forestry Operations Service for 15 years. What the hell did you do? I tried with Canadian Ralph Roberts, Canadian government support to create a World Forestry Organization. As a result, we created ITTO. What is ITTO? Almost falling apart. Let us see, since the Malaysian lady refused to continue fighting to take it over, let us see whether the German boy supported by German boy supported by European Union, what will be? Let us see. So ITTO is still ITTC, and ITTC 3 times fights, and then finally let the German come in because now consumer countries. So I'm just giving you around the challenging situation of forestry. C4, I'm afraid there are people from C4 who has left carrying Sunderland. Sunderland means beautiful land. He has gone away to land. I don't know where else. And Nariman is already gone to Australia perhaps. The two of them talk a lot of blah, blah, blah. But what is happening? In fact, when I established C4 and inaugurated in the Indonesian president's room, there are photos, Indonesian president's room, and there was the Minister of Environment of Indonesia who started the first certification system in the world, Lembaga Eco-Label. And we announced there, and my president of Indonesia was very unhappy with me because when the lecture, my 5 minutes like this spoke, I'm giving this because the challenge of forestry and forestry. Because I said, I'm grateful that Indonesia is hosting C4 and let it be started. And you are hosting in Bogor, but I wish you had done it in Jakarta, but they prefer to put it in Bogor. But that's not enough. I said, but please do not behave as NATO. I'm anti-NATO. Everybody stood up. I said, I'm against no action talk only. And that's what's happening. This NATO, all forestry organizations, including the one I led, is no action talk. I had about $4 billion devoted to some projects, programs here and there during my 15 years. And because donors were very kind to me, UNDP decided no money to go to any other route except Maharaja Muthu's route because he doesn't put any in pocket. Mistake, doesn't matter. Mistake. So never mind, that's why I come here. Now long and short story is no World Forestry Organization. And in FAO, it's being reduced in size. Oh, so much should inform FAO. It's being reduced in size. So now, the only thing to tell you frankly, I'm impressed by, there's nobody from PEFC here. No, you are not from PEFC. And is what the PEFC has said SDGs. He had said to dear readers, he sent a message. It was on the website of PEFC, and I have copied, cut it, pasted it, and he told me, don't worry, go ahead and cut it. And an article of mine has just been issued. It was circulated in my office, where I said, where I quoted that we should create a World Forestry Organization. PEFC could be converted into that, and certification should be taken. Because governments are saying certification is a third party thing. They are not accepting it. And there is a guy from India there in the back seat, and he is trying to create a National Certification Council. Government is not supporting him or opposing him. They could have at least opposed it or supported it. So there is a third part. So the only country is Malaysia. I come back to it where government supported right from beginning. And the son-in-law of the president of the country was made the first head. And now, of course, Sardar Sahab is there, and Young is there, and I like them both present there right from beginning. And then I came as an FSC guy, FSC Executive Director. I had resigned from FAO because I found it's not a World Forestry Organization. FSC Executive Director, and we tried to start FSC. Then I found it such an elitist process, this certification. Elitism. So I resigned. After Germany gave me money to shift off so much to go to Bonnie, or Bonnie, no. That the only, so my suggestion is whether challenge, I am giving you challenge, I am glad that CCPP, can we create a world forestry organization which will be ownership of certification, or else you decide to PEFC or whatever. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Bambang Widiantoro. Yeah, the short name Bambang is very much in Indonesian. So my short name is Bambang Widiantoro. Bambang Widiantoro. Okay, my chairman, Mr. Indroyono Susilo, the apology is not coming here because already from Morocco. Okay, I would like to present from the association. Yeah. The title is Navigating the Political Landscape. What's the motivating the forest sector to act? There is a sustainable development goals, the Paris Agreement, Flagship Action Plan, REDD+, IAC, Blueprint, so 20 and 20 zero net deforestation. Where is the forest sector leading the way, and which instrument provide the most opportunity to scale up the forest sector's positive social, environment, and economic impact? So my president, your colleague in Paris Agreement, Indonesia is committed to protect its forest sustainability. By 2030, Indonesia's national determined contribution targets about 29% emission reduction under its own effort, and up to 41% with international cooperation under business as usual condition. And the targets will be contributed by the forestry sector, the energy sector, and others. From the forestry sector is the contributed about 70% of the target of 29%. So the ratification member of Parliament, Indonesia has ratified the Paris Agreement into the law number 16, the year of 2016, adopted by Parliament on October 19, 2016. So the association's member, there has the role of private sector to scale up the forest sector's positive social, environmental, and economic impact. There are many activities on production forest managed by association's member. The one, landscaping area of the license, reducing emission from deforestation, reducing emission from forest degradation, and sustainable forest management, enhancing of forest carbon stock, environmental protection, supporting poverty alleviation, and human resource development, including the surround of the forest, and infrastructure and economic development. And the activities, can be challenged by managing landscape approach on plantation forest management. There is 70% for main plantation, and up to 20% for the livelihood, and 10% for the conservation zone. And two, the challenge is increasing productivity of natural forests through the intensive silviculture. This is like in Indonesian system, silviculture, selective cutting, and others. and reducing economy of natural forest management. There are also corporate social responsibility and partnership community program. And the challenge of how to get the certification mandatory and voluntary. Okay, I will describe a managing landscape approach for eliminating deforestation from supply chains. The Indonesians have forest conservation policy with high conservation value and high carbon stock area have been identified in 10 priority landscape of Indonesia. It's around 600,000 hectares of forest conservation areas are managed as high conservation value and high carbon stock. It's while further 450,000 hectares have been included under landscape approach forest protection and restoration initiatives. This activity or this area located in areas in Sumatra and Kalimantan. It is indicated that in 2015 the avoidance of greenhouse gas emission by 14.29 million ton carbon equivalent has been recorded. And achieved through the Forest Conservation Moratorium, that is best practice peatland management and energy efficiency initiative. And thus increasing the productivity of natural forest initiatives with the technique sealing. The selective cutting and strip planting system is doing in Indonesian system for the silviculture system. This is a location of the log-over area with slope under 25%. Initiative silviculture is activity for clearing tree or selection of propagation and the clonal technique. And the manipulation of the environment, the opening cropping lines for sunlight entry and intensive maintenance. And the integrated pest management in the natural forest, not a big issue. And the last, the selection priority for local tree species. We would like to compare from the reduced impact logging or real carbon of natural forest management. The emission from existing logging practices is not better than real carbon. Okay. The last presentation is the status of SFM, Sustainable Forest Management, and verified what wood legality. From the Sustainable Plantation Forest and verified wood legality, from the mandatory and the eco-label, Indonesian, and Forest Stewardship Council and IFCC. There is doing in Indonesia such many certificates get for the license of forest management. That is all. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to mention two words, kind of the elephant in the room, that have only been mentioned once this morning. Charles mentioned it in his remarks. Those were human rights. But in fact, everybody in the keynote speech, there was a brilliant keynote speech, and everybody talked about individuals' human rights. I'm here, my intervention is on the guiding principles on business and human rights. In 2011, the United Nations Human Rights Commission unanimously endorsed the guiding principles on business and human rights. Before then, governments signed all kinds of declarations on human rights, and individuals had their rights, and NGOs and CSOs advocated for and protected those rights. But companies really kind of were left out of that dialogue, and that was, I think that was hurtful to companies because they lost their agenda, they lost their narrative. And in 2011, I think they felt that it was more positive to be part of that narrative, to be part of this business and human rights. I think what it points to, though, also is the increased responsibility upon companies. Companies are big. You guys are big. You represent big impacts and big businesses, and you affect people, a lot of people. And so human rights all of a sudden became part of that discussion. Not just for the companies themselves, but who they do business with, who companies interact with, their supply chain. That's also part of it. And we're just seeing more and more and more attention on human rights. I'll tell you the other word. It was only said, I think, once. It was made reference to a couple of times, but it was only said once. Trump. And the election in the States, maybe there's going to be, things change, right? And so priorities may change. That's part of the political process. So, what we've seen over the last several years is more and more and more attention to companies. What we saw in this election was a lot of criticism of companies, the election that everybody was watching. We saw a lot of criticism of globalization, of the effects of companies, a lot of criticism, a lot of mistrust. In fact, I saw the other day that the tobacco convention, UN Tobacco Convention, one of the provisions in the UN Tobacco Convention is that companies should not be able to lobby and try to influence legislation. I saw that UNFCCC was also considering that type of inclusion in the UNFCCC. So in other words, there's a trust factor here, and that's a real issue, and corporate responsibility is a real issue. And I think no matter, this is the road that we're on. You're just seeing it more and more and more, so I don't need to tell you. You're seeing the effects of your businesses, of your clients, of your stakeholders, for the NGOs. You're seeing more and more attention to individual rights, negative impacts on individuals. And this alliance, this holy alliance of government, companies, NGOs, this holy alliance may change. Politically, it may change from time to time. But the attention and the responsibility that's being placed on companies is not going to change. So no matter what the political process, no matter what we just went through, no matter what we may be seeing about Paris Accords or whatever else, I think one of the other things that was mentioned on this panel is consumers. And frankly, at the end of the day, as you guys know better than anybody, consumers are the ultimate regulator. They will buy your product, they will accept your brand, they will accept your stamp, they will accept your certification or not. And so that's the road that we're on. My intervention is about more and more and more attention to corporate responsibility, and yes, the words that were mentioned about poverty alleviation, economic development, environmental management and the rest, it all boils down to individuals. It all boils down to human rights. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. We're just about running up against the next panel. We're going to try to do that in a few minutes. I got 4 things out of this. I was thinking, looking across this and the earlier comments this morning, what could one say? One is that, as I was mentioning earlier, Steve, there's a very diversified set. There's no one international set of forest standards or a global forest organization. Maybe that's because forests are not a global problem, they are a ubiquitous problem. It's an issue for almost all countries, but it's not like climate change in the same way that it requires necessarily global international coordination to solve the problem. All of the problems, they vary from place to place. Forests are sovereign resources in particular countries. It seems that processes of certification, like PEFC, are still very relevant and are something that people can turn to when they're looking amongst this massive set of different conflicting interests from poverty alleviation and environmental protection and governance. That this is a place one can go to make sense of this and to try to use this as a standard, as a sort of a lodestar for how the sector should possibly react. I think that we all see that also certification systems need to adapt and change and deal with new situations and new expectations, new levels of transparency of information and things like that. I know that will be talked about a bit this afternoon in other sessions. And finally, I guess it's obviously more than just about environment and ecological aspects of it that maybe started a lot of the concern with certification, that there are elements of how do you put this together with development and poverty alleviation? How do you deal with human rights and governance? These are concerns. Yes, we care about extinction and the loss of rainforests, but we care about slave labor and things like that as well. And this needs to be pulled together, and more people the expectations are informed by the amount of communication and information that everyday people have about where their products come from and their interest in knowing what the impact of their lives is as they go forward. So I guess I will just leave it at that. Give 1 minute by my clock here for the transition to the next panel. And I'd like you all to join me in thanking our panel for interesting and provocative and important points. Thank you very much.
Salah satu kabupaten yang cukup luas di Sumatera Selatan, dan kita punya 442.000 hektar kebun kelapa sawit, 500.000 hektar kebun karet, kemudian 700.000 hektar kawasan hutan. Dan dari 700.000 hektar itu 280.000 hektarnya adalah gambut. Dan unfortunately, sayangnya tahun lalu ada 130.000 hektar kebakaran lahan di kabupaten saya.
Musi Banyu Asin has a size of 1.4 million hectare. One of the largest area in South Sumatra. It has 442,000 hectares of oil palm plantations, 500,000 hectares of rubber, as well as 700,000 hectares of forest, whereas it also has 280,000 hectares of peats. Unfortunately, last year in 2015, about 130,000 hectares of areas on peat, including on peat, is on fire.
Saya minta maaf pertama kepada Singapura dan Malaysia karena asap dari Kabupaten PEFC Banyu Asin inilah yang menjangkau salah satunya ke Singapura dan Malaysia tahun lalu.
I apologize to our neighboring Singapore and Malaysia due to the haze that coming from our district.
Tapi alhamdulillah tahun ini, Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, kabupaten saya mendapat penghargaan apresiasi dari Kementerian Kehutanan Republik Indonesia, karena menurut penilaian kementerian kami telah berhasil melakukan upaya-upaya pencegahan. Walaupun sebetulnya saya masih termasuk yang menolak untuk hadir, karena menurut saya belum pantas untuk mendapat penghargaan, karena tahun ini penyebab tidak terbakarnya lahan menurut saya salah satunya dibantu oleh cuaca yang cukup baik, dalam arti curah hujan yang begitu cukup tinggi di Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin.
I'm happy that this year we received an award from the national government because of our efforts to prevent the fires from happening. However, I feel that we are also very much helped also by the better weather this year, which also has many rains.
Sehubungan hutan di Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin ada 425.000 hektar konsesi kehutanan, 97%-nya konsesi dari perusahaan-perusahaan yang mendapat izin dari pemerintah pusat, dan hanya 3% yang melalui skema perizinan milik rakyat. Tantangan-tantangan yang kami rasa di kabupaten saya selama ini tentu adalah illegal logging, forest encroachment, kemudian persoalan gambut, kemudian juga ada soal kapasitas petani-petani dalam skala kecil dan produktivitas mereka di sekitar kawasan hutan.
We have 425,000 hectares of forest concessions, of which mostly owned by companies whose licenses are issued by the national government. Only 3% are communities concessions. Our challenges include illegal logging, forest encroachment, peat management, as well as the capacity and the productivity of the smallholders surrounding the forest that is still quite low.
Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, Musi Banyuasin berkomitmen melihat kondisi existing yang ada di Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin sejak tahun lalu. Saya telah berkomitmen implementasi bersama Pak Gubernur Sumatera Selatan. Kita siap dan terus bekerja untuk menjadikan lanskap di Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin ini untuk berkelanjutan. Paling ada 2 model yang kami dalam wilayah saya, yaitu pertama kelola sendang, kemudian lalang, yang intinya saya ingin agar produksi komoditas rakyat di satu sisi memberi kesejahteraan, kemudian tentunya di sisi lain juga sangat sejalan dan mensupport agar keberlangsungan lingkungan hidup yang baik di Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin.
We are committed to support the commitment of the governor on the sustainable landscapes. We are hosting 2 models of sustainable landscape in Musi Banyuasin. One is Kelola Sendang and the second one is Lalan. I would like to emphasize that the most important is that the productions from the smallholders and communities can bring welfare, but in the same time is also making sure the protections of the environment.
Soal yurisdiksi sertifikasi, kami fokus untuk di kabupaten saya, lanskap lalang kita targetkan 2018 kerjasama dengan berbagai pihak. Telah membentuk juga semacam konsorsium teman-teman sahabat MOBA untuk membantu agar implementasi dari jurisdiksi sertifikasi di lalan lanskap itu bisa di 2018. Kemudian next kami harapkan di 2020 Musi Banyuasin secara keseluruhan menjadi lanskap yang jurisdiksinya tercertified.
because palm oil is also one of the key commodities in Musi Banyu Asin, and it has also impacts and also contributions to the sustainable landscapes. So we are also committed towards the jurisdictional certifications for palm oil, and we would like to first trial it in Lalan, in sustainable landscape Lalan, to support sustainable landscape in Lalan, and we are helped by Sahabat Muba or Friends of Muba, and our target is to certify the oil palm, the 100% oil palm produced in Lalan by 2018.
Saya mau langsung saja masuk ke Lalan mengingat waktu. Next. Ini Lalan Subdistrik, area kurang lebih 100.000 hektar, 35.000 hektar kebun kelapa sawit, di mana ada 16.000 petani kecil. Hanya ada dua pabrik sawit di situ. Kemudian yang penting lainnya dari Lalan ini adalah satu buffer zone dari 9 national park dan Bentayan Sanctuary Forest. Kemudian Lalan bisa menjadi model karena ada juga isu energi yang masih kurang baik di lanskap ini, hingga saya berpikir ke depan Lalan ini nanti justru akan kita buat satu lanskap yang memang berkelanjutan dengan memanfaatkan potensi-potensi yang ada.
I would like to focus on Lalan. So Lalan is a sub-district in my district with 100,000 hectare area. It has 35,000 hectare of oil palm plantations, of which 16,000 hectares owned by smallholders. It only has 2 palm oil mills, but Lalan is also very important because it is a buffer zone to Sembilan National Park as well as Bentayan Sanctuary Forest. And there is still an issue of energy in Lalan, there is a deficit of electricity, and I feel that Lalan can be a good model for sustainable landscape by using all the potential in this area.
Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, mungkin ada yang bertanya apa progres yang telah kami lakukan sejauh ini di lanskap Lalan ini. Kami bersama mitra telah melakukan mapping pemetaan 4.000 hektar tani kecil misalnya di Lalan. Kemudian kita juga telah melakukan dari sisi pemerintah 2.800 STDB, surat tanda daftar budidaya kekebunan yang selama ini kita tidak punya data. Kemudian kita sudah membentuk task force sahabat Muba. Kemudian saya juga telah membentuk semacam satgas agraria, karena di lanskap Lalan itu juga masih tinggi konflik agrarianya, menurut saya harus segera diatasi.
We have made quite a lot of progress in Lalan, including 4,000 hectare of 4,000 hectare of smallholders has been met, and we also have issued 2,800 STDB. This is the license for the smallholders, which shows that they are located not within the forest. So this is something that we don't have in the past, but now we would like to have this data to be collected, so we understand where are the plantations that are within the forest or outside the forest. We have also established a task force on Sahabat Muba, and recently I also established a task force on land conflict and agraria.
Timeline. Next, inilah timeline yang kami rencanakan. Sudah saya singgung di awal tadi. Kita berharap 2018 Lalan subdistrik sudah tersertified. Kemudian Musi Banyu Asin secara regional kami Kabupaten Musi Banyuasin 2020 dan ini akan mensupport South Sumatra pada 2025.
With regards to the timeline, as I mentioned before, we plan to certify lalan by 2018. This is also important so that oil palm also contributes to sustainable landscape. And then we would like to also then going forward for Musi Banyuasin to be certified by 2020 and to support South Sumatra to be certified by 2025.
Bapak Ibu hadirin yang saya hormati, terakhir mengingat waktu, pendekatan jurisdiksi di subdistrik Lalan, kenapa kami ingin lakukan? Karena selama ini menurut kami pendekatan yang dilakukan selalu terkotak-kotak. Misalnya dari sisi kelapa sawit itu hanya sustain kotak-kotaknya itu hanya di pabrik kelapa sawit. Kemudian di sektor kehutanan hanya di hutan. Padahal sebetulnya ini masalah yang saling kait-mengait. Contoh misalnya deforestasi di kabupaten saya itu harus connect dengan kelapa sawit. Karena kenapa? Karena budidaya kelapa sawit yang ada masuk ke dalam kawasan hutan. Jadi saya pikir pendekatan secara jurisdiksi, sertifikasi terhadap lanskap lalan ke depan menurut kami satu pendekatan yang baik dan yang tentunya tidak melupakan kesejahteraan masyarakat saya.
For me, the jurisdictional certifications provides opportunity to see the common issues in more holistic way. Currently, we only see oil palm as unit of palm oil mills. We only see forest as only forest companies. But I think it has links to each other, so we have to see this as in a holistic view, because deforestations in my district also connected to oil palm expansions, those who also planted within the forest. So this approach is very good. We have started with oil palm, but perhaps this is also some things that we can also include in the forest area. But also most importantly, this approach should help increasing the welfare of our people.
Terima kasih banyak Pak. Thank you so much Pak Bupati. I think he has already outlined the platform of why as a Bupati or as the head of district he pushed forward, he supported or he supports the sustainable landscape approach because it's an integrated approach combining different commodity sectors and also stakeholders. Talking about stakeholders, Pak Bupati mentions about one of the largest concessionaires in Musi Banyuasin. So I'm now asking Dewi, for instance, sending APP, what sort of responses of the companies like APP when it comes to sustainable landscape approach in Musi Banyuasin or South Sumatra in general. Dewi, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity, especially PEFC, for sharing today ADB's experiences and evolution in forest management across our pulpwood supply chain and how we came to adopt the landscape approach. As many of you are aware, in February 2013, ADB launched its groundbreaking Forest Conservation Policy, or FCP, which one of its key commitments is zero deforestation across our pulpwood supply chain. We work with our suppliers to stop clearing of natural forest area inside their production forest concession. We also improve the sustainable management of our suppliers' forests by incorporating results of our high conservation value, high carbon stock, social and also the plantation forest productivity assessment to develop our integrated sustainable forest management plan, or ISFFP. We realized early on in the implementation of FCP that a landscape level consideration is important. what our suppliers do inside our concessions impact the areas outside and vice versa. Thus, the ISFMP was developed with landscape consideration. First of all the studies that I mentioned before, such as high conservation value and high carbon stock, already consider landscape level aspects in their assessment. And then the process for developing ISFMP itself involves input from the stakeholders on the landscape, including community representatives, local NGOs, local authorities, and academics that are part of a regional ISFMP task force that we established. The process helped us to identify landscape level issues from external stakeholders' point of view, which we need to consider to adjust the management of the concession itself. It was also an opportunity for us to inform our landscape stakeholders on the concepts of HCV and HES and the challenges that we face in balancing company and communities' economic needs and our conservation targets. The process allowed us to work together with our stakeholders to develop solutions to address those challenges that can be accepted by the wider landscape stakeholders. Thus, it has a better chance of being implemented well and sustainably inside our concession areas. But as I mentioned before, what happens outside of the concession boundaries also impacts whatever we do inside our supplier's concession area. No matter how much effort we put to protect the natural forest and peatland inside, it could still be at risk in the long term if we don't align the efforts of those on the outside, whether it's other forest concession holders, agricultural concession holders, government agencies in the national park areas, and most importantly, community that lives near and around the forested area. For example, we can build dams inside the forest production concession area to keep the high water levels to reduce the risk in peatland. But if the nearby company or community continue to drain their area for their crops, then our costly efforts will be ineffective. There are many efforts actually for forest conservation in Indonesia, but oftentimes they just operate in silo and without coordination with other players doing similar things nearby. And the results are duplications, inefficiencies, and smaller and shorter term impacts. With that reality in front of us, ABP then embark on our landscape level conservation effort that goes beyond our supplier's concession area with our commitment to support conservation initiative in 10 landscapes, and we have committed $10 million a year in cash and in-kind support for this initiative. To carry out the work, we established the Belantara Foundation that becomes our implementation partner for the landscape conservation efforts, and also to help us engage other players in the landscape to work together for a common conservation goal. One such example is the multi-stakeholder jurisdictional approach that conservation that we are supporting in South Sumatra, as mentioned before by Benny, that is led by the provincial government and also the district government. Through this approach, we have involved several landscape level. We have been involved in several landscape level programs. As been mentioned before by Benny, and another example is in the Barandi KPHP or Production Forest Management Unit in the Musi Banyuasin district also. And our work is in support of the government-run KPHP to provide funding to a local conservation NGO, this one is IAPK, to develop and implement community programs to raise their awareness and educate them on environmental issues and risks, provide them with improved livelihood that are also environmentally friendly and sustainable, to programs to increase productivity and improving access to market, so they do not need to expand and encroach the forested area or involve in illegal activities such as illegal logging or also using unsustainable practice such as using fire to clear land, as was mentioned before. So hopefully the program is right now starting to be implemented. The IAPK is working with the community to develop a detailed plan for each one of them. Because we need to ensure that the local communities and authorities are involved in the detailed planning, so that not just the acceptance of the programs will be achieved, but also there is ownership from the community itself on the program implementation. As you noticed that I've mentioned a lot about community, we believe that they play a key role in making sure that the conservation effort in the landscape can be sustained for the long time. Depending on how we engage this community, they can either be a threat or a contributor to natural forest conservation. The root problem of community threat on natural forest protection is poverty and limited awareness of their impact on their own environment and future welfare. That is why most of our landscape level conservation program will include community-related programs. We need to empower them with the capability to take care of themselves in a sustainable and environmentally friendly manner so that then they can take care of the environment and the natural forest around them. So APP itself is still learning as we go along in implementing our landscape level conservation commitment. I'm sure it will continue to evolve as we identify better ways to engage various stakeholders and players around so that we can operate and achieve our shared goal to protect Indonesia's remaining natural forests in the long term. Thank you.
I think this is the main objective of Kelola Sendang is to get inclusive economic growth and community prosperity while also focus on biodiversity conservation, and some of them are already mentioned by Pak Boti, which is forest protection and ending of deforestation in the future. And at the end of the day is actually reducing greenhouse gas emission for the next decade. When we talk about the beneficiaries, actually Kelola Sendang, we work in 15 sub-districts, more than 200 villages, and in 1.6 million hectares of the area, and it also contains more than 140,000 households and more than 400,000 people within the area of Kelola Sendang. So those are the main stakeholder that they get the benefit from our project for the next period. One of the important achievement of GNSL is actually producing so-called SPOT, the Sustainable Palm Oil Transparency Toolkit, that is actually to provide information and resources for stakeholders in palm oil industry to get in order to reduce negative environmental impacts. You may open that website and then see some important information in Indonesia about the palm oil development, including who already involved in SPO, where the location are located, and also the size, total size, and also the boundary of the area. So this is we always update this information through tools, so-called SPOT. And the other one is so-called SMART, Spatial Monitoring and Reporting Tool, and also it's been developed by GSL. It is actually the software, and we also provide training material to public and private sector since 2001, working together with the private sector and also public sector to provide important patrolling system to the manager, and also to deal with the poaching and also illegal logging activities on the ground. I think one of the important points with GSL approach is actually we have to deal with the science-based landscape approach that already mentioned by Terry in previous presentation, and the importance of data and analysis to work together within the partner. And also at the end of the day, we have to continue with constant negotiations so to reach our goal together. And this is one of the target of Kelola Sendang for the next 2 years. I think that's all of my presentation on Kelola Sendang. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us here. Thank you to IDH and PEFC to give us a chance to share our experience, also our concerns in the landscape of Sembilang, Lampu, and Lalang. HATI is a local organization in South Sumatra, and we are working on forest and community rights issues. Yeah, this is land cover in the landscape. Pak Denny actually already mentioned about this. So most of the area has been degraded for since many years. So we found out that the forest cover in the area is less than 30,000 hectares, but not included forest in the areas like restoration areas, urban forest, and conservation areas. Yeah, this is the map that Pak Bupati already mentioned, that where the community forest is, and most of them are actually already allocated for some permits, including timber industrial plantations, oil palm plantation, restoration areas, and community forest. But the community forest is just only 3%. But actually there's many potential areas for, and what we think is very urgent in the area. One is establish social forestry task force in South Sumatra and improve coordinations. What you already mentioned that we are now mostly working in on our box, so we need to do more coordination among stakeholders. And also we found out it's very important to both in the province and in the district to establish conflict resolution institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Pak Hedra Wijaya. I think many of you would like to know why, for instance, an agency like the Crude Palm Oil Fund or the BDP is keen enough to support the sustainable landscape or sustainable palm oil supply chain in Musi Banyuasin. Pak Hedra, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. BPDP Sawit, or we call it also Palm Oil Fund, has a mandate to promote sustainable palm oil and in particular the livelihood and welfare of small estate farming communities. Here Palm Oil Fund also can support for several activities like education women or human resource improvement, for planting support for smallholder, research and development, infrastructure, equipment, support for smallholder, promotion and advocacy, food, drive, downstream industry, biofuel development. Palm oil joins IDS, support the development of model of sustainable landscape in sub-district Lalan, initiated by Bupati Banyuasin. The important in Lalan is the dominant land use is in Lalan is oil palm, and also the land used for plantation of rice, and rice is the high production in Lalan, and also support for province of South Sumatra. We believe the sustainable landscape approach will provide opportunity to review and produce scenario to optimize production of multi-commodities including palm oil and protection of environment and ecosystem. Address the shared issue, the landscape, fire, electricity or bioenergy, legality, productivity, capacity of farmers, improve livelihoods as the entry points for multi-stakeholder to work together. Allow for Lalan to be the preferred sourcing area for sustainable palm oil. Produce integrated production protection action plan. Inform where CPO fund can play a role and direct its fund. Inform other actors such as minister, market, donors, and financial institutions to invest and contribute to meaningful impact. Interim finding of the study was presented by Diameter to the partners and explained Diameter to present final draft of the study with different scenario to a team of experts and seek for feedback. and green design of sustainability landscape Malang to be available by the end of this year. I think, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you. I'm Eric Purnomo from C4 and IPP. There are two questions at least. First is a suggestion, I think it's in line with Pak Nadia. We need to have a landscape matrix, measuring the landscape. From 10 years ago to now, what will be carbon stock, what the emission, and also the projection to the future. So you can prove whether your whatever landscape management can improve the landscape in terms of reducing carbon emission, improving the livelihood, also the forest cover and others. Based on that, you can learn without monitoring users. Landscape manager will not monitor users. So I suggest as emission is one of you can monitor by your action in the past, not in the future. And the second one is more governance issue. I heard a lot of the debate. I don't know, maybe it's misunderstanding between government and MEP in terms of Sugiha, and also between the government, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and APRE in Rio. So sometimes the private sector would like try to expand their governing area to involve them to the conservation area. That seems the government, the Ministry of Forestry and Environment, not really like it. How to solve the governing issue between the private sectors and government. And I hope, well, we have a company actually as a place to resolve that, but not very fast. And the last one, maybe include Pak Derajat. Can this my imagination that PEFC and Forestry and ISPO in Papua or RSQ Ribola FSC can be harmonized, because now it's like Forestry with their own credit indicator and Unpa with their own credit indicator. It's not really harmonized. Thank you.
Kabupaten saya memang ironis, kabupaten yang sumber daya alamnya luar biasa. Saya tadi hanya menyampaikan soal hutan, soal kelapa sawit. Sebenarnya kabupaten ini juga penghasil gas lifting terbesar nomor 3 di Republik ini. Tapi memang ironis, kabupaten saya punya angka kemiskinan sekitar sekarang 16%. Sangat ironis. Tapi selama ini sekali lagi pendekatan dalam sertifikasi hanya seperti yang saya sampaikan tadi, hanya terkotak-kotak, hanya di satu sisi. Silakan.
My district has a lot of natural resources. I only mentioned oil palm and timber, but actually my district also one of the biggest producers of natural gas. We are the third largest electricity suppliers in the country, but ironically we still have 16% of poverty statistic in the districts, and currently we see certification as only in silo. We don't really see the common issues in more holistic way.
Kalau pendekatannya benar, dalam contoh misalnya di kemiskinan tadi, saya contohkan kabupaten saya juga ada best practice soal 1 miliar 1 desa misalnya,
Kabupaten ini pertama di Republik ini. Sebelum pemerintah pusat melakukan, kami sudah melakukannya 4 tahun yang lalu. Dalam mengurangi angka kemiskinan, ternyata ada keberpihakan anggaran ke desa. Itu terbukti paling tinggi di Sumatera Selatan yang menurunkan angka kemiskinan di kabupaten kami.
If this approach can be done correctly, in a correct way, actually this can help reducing the poverty in my district. For example, before the national government come up with a policy of 1 billion rupiah for one village, I already initiated this in my district, and actually this really helps in reducing the poverty line in my district.
Tadi yang bertanya soal dampak, karena kita sedang mengerjakan, saya hanya barangkali untuk mendeklar komitmen dan optimis bahwa saya yakin masyarakat saya bisa melakukannya, karena saya yakin kemiskinan akan berkurang kalau kita tepat menempatkan, mengkonektingkan apa-apa potensi yang ada. Saya kasih contoh misalnya, soal landscape lalan itu membutuhkan listrik. Saya yakin kalau potensi kelapa sawit, kemudian biomass di sekitar situ bisa dikumpulkan untuk listrik, saya yakin itu akan sangat membantu saya untuk menyiapkan lanskap ini untuk lebih berdaya ke depan.
So, to provide you with the example of the impacts that I would like to have from this approach, if we can place this potential in the district, and we can utilize this potential more in a more optimum way, this may be able to provide impacts and helps people to come out from poverty. For example, in Lalan, there is major issues of electricity deficit, but if we are able to identify and utilize the potential in Lalan itself, for example, from oil palm waste that we can use to generate electricity, renewable energy, I'm sure this can be one of the important impacts from this approach that we can deliver to the people.
Thank you. I give response to Professor Mari. After this study, we will have based data of the smallholder palm oil and also the situation of the legality of land, and we will have also the plan to have training for farmer with stress to implement principle and criteria of ISO. And then also we have planned to have MOU with the RSPO for getting the combined audit between RSPO and ISPO. And now we already make the preparation.
So answering your question about governance between companies and the government themselves, obviously it's difficult enough for the company to manage what is inside concession. It's never, I don't think any one company here wants to extend their governance beyond their own boundaries. It's difficult. What we're trying to do is to find alliances, alignment in our interests, because the government themselves have that interest to make sure that there's no more deforestation, there's no more forest fire like Bupati mentioned before. So what we're trying to do is to combine all of our resources, our limited resources together, coordinate it, so that the impact of what we're trying to do will be bigger. And just like any other companies, they are part of their corporate social responsibilities, and we want to support that with the community around, with the environment around us. So it's not correct to think that the company wants to extend the governance. What we want to do instead is to support the government.
Thank you, Hari and Aidil. Duet, please.
Okay, thank you, Professor Nabil and Professor Hari, your concerns. I think within for the next 2-3 years, we have project outcomes like the jurisdictional landscape green road partnership is established, and also some of the pilot area will be established as example, and then will be scaling up in the future in different regions, national level or other professional level. And then what will be the impact actually? We hope that we can achieve inclusive economic growth and also community prosperity and also biodiversity protection and also to increase restoration area and by ending deforestation. And at the end of the day, we can measure how many greenhouse gas emissions that can be reduced. And of course, we have detailed activities and we can discuss later during the lunch. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Our concern and our roles in the landscape is to ensure the community rights, because we believe this is the basic requirements to do sustainable landscape management. So our work will be in the area to do conflict resolution and social forestry. We found that there's quite a lot of conflicts in the area, but we believe we can find a way to solve the conflict. For example, by establishing the conflict resolution institution like Pak Bupati already established in Musi Banyasin. Now we are working to encourage the provincial level to do the same things. And we believe if we have that kind of institution, it will accelerate to resolve land conflicts in the area, and also to accelerate the social forestry as our president already committed.
When we are talking about landscape and certification, it is not only about large forest companies. Yesterday, we announced, and it is published in Indonesian media and television, that PEFC has certified 1.8 million hectares of forest in Indonesia. But PEFC and RCC is not only about large corporations. Today, I'd like to share with you our initiative, which is to have a certification of community forest in Indonesia. The definition of community forest that we are using is the one that adopted by FAO, which is any situations which intimately involves local people in a forestry activity. Well, I have my teacher Mel Byron here. I don't know what any situation means. Why FAO, Dr. Maharaj Mutu used to be the FAO. Why FAO used the word any situation. But that's the definition that we adopt. And there are several types of community forests in Indonesia that we are considering for certification. Number one is community forest in private land, or we call it hutan rakyat. And number two is community forest in state land, on state land, or we call it hutan kemasyarakatan, or HKM. And number three, community plantation forest. Number four, village forest. And number five, customary forest. These are the types of forest that we are considering for certification. At this time, our certification scheme has already been developed, and we are entering the final phase. We have undertaken all the necessary public consultations with the exception of the last one. And we will be entering the pilot project phase soon. And we are working with a number of smallholder forests in in West Java, and also a number of small and medium enterprises in furniture. And here in Bali, yesterday and today, when we have interviewed with the media, Bali media asked, Mas Derajat, why not having a pilot project in Bali? I said, oh yeah, okay, Bali is a good case, so I think we will have a pilot project in Bali as well. Well, what are the challenges that we are facing? Of course, technical challenge is very difficult, but I have a large number of forest expertise, forestry foresters that help us to develop the skill. But the main challenge, I think at the moment, will be economy. Why? Because smallholder forests, they only have maybe less than 0.25 hectares of forest. They will not be able to afford the cost of certification. and also the smallholder furniture companies. They won't be able to afford the certification. So the policy that we are adopting is we are raising funding to subsidize possible auditees so that they are able to showcase to the world that they are working sustainably. Take for example the one in Bali. Can we have the photo on the slide? No? Okay. In Bali, if you go to Uluwatu, you can see agroforestry there, small agroforestry, and people use the woods to do wood carving, to do tiny furniture, souvenirs. Under the current scheme, we won't be able to provide certification for these people. With our new initiative, we hope that we will be able to help them so that they can put, they can showcase to the world that they are producing their stuff in a sustainable way, and they can enter upmarket in Europe or in America. This is a big task for us because we have almost 40 million smallholder companies in Indonesia, and maybe around 15% of them are involved in the wood-based industry. So it will be a very big task, but somebody has to do it, and I'm very proud and very happy that RCC has taken the initiative to do it. Thank you, and I hope I hope we can have some help from you all as well. Thank you.
I'm here to talk about a new initiative that we're working on in the southeastern United States, in the state of Florida, looking at using landscape management plans as a tool to increase the participation and involvement of small forest landowners in that state, with the hopes of finding ways to engage many more small family landowners in sustainable forest management and certification over time. So I'd like to just provide a very brief context first about the current state and trends, and then talk about a few specifics about the project. So first, across the U.S. and specifically in the southeastern part of the United States, research by the U.S. Forest Service indicates that about 85% of family forest landowners are not engaged in regular management activities, and only about 10% actually are actively managing on a regular basis and harvesting trees off their property. So that creates the opportunity for a significant amount of opportunity to grow the certification program in the U.S. So specifically, the American Tree Farm System, which is PEFC endorsed, is celebrating its 75th year this year, and it's the most active in the Southeast. That program is, yet it only represents less than 5% of all forest land, small forest land holders in the Southeast. There's about 1.8 million family forest landowners in the southeastern 13 states. They represent about 55 million hectares of forest land. So that's a lot of opportunity, I would say. So specifically, there's been a shift that's been occurring and related to the funding for support and assistance of family forest landowners, not only just in the Southeast, but all over the country. And that shift has occurred by both government agencies at the federal and state level, as well as through private funders that are shifting their focus on funding activities that demonstrate and measure conservation impacts. So they're shifting away from recognizing measurements such as the number of forest management plans that are generated, away from the number of sustainable forest management certificates or the number of outreaches that are made, which have been traditional ways to measure progress towards government agencies and private funders. So that's a significant shift, and we have to address that shift so we can, one, maintain the relationships with our government agencies as well as with private funders to help support activities to improve forest management on small forest private landowners. So the question is, why are we doing this landscape management plan pilot? And there's a handful of reasons. One, it offers opportunities to reduce barriers to landowners to be able to participate in sustainable forest management certification. It reduces the overall cost of landowners to participate and improves the time efficiency to be able to get a landowner from where they are today into a certification program. It helps manage landowners' behavior, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And I would say that we are already using landscape management approaches through group certification through the tree farm program already, and that's been successful. However, that's on larger land, larger land areas. And for most of the tree farms that are part of the tree farm program, they range anywhere from about 4 hectares up to maybe 40 hectares. So these are fairly small areas. So quickly, who are the project partners? There's a handful of them: Apalachicola Partnership, the American Forest Foundation, the Florida Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, a company called Georgia Pacific, and with the support of PEFC through the International Office Grant Program, of which we're able to quite significantly leverage that investment by PEFC into this project. We have a couple of project goals. One, engage landowners in conservation practices to advance landscape scale priorities. In the Southeast, that's focused mostly on wildlife habitat. Grow and streamline the certification participation across the tree farm network, and to be able to document our learning and share those learnings and hopefully replicate this approach elsewhere. So how are we going to achieve the goals that I just outlined? There's about 4 things that we're focused on. First is we're developing a landscape management plan for a very specific geographic area, and we're looking to address 1 or more critical conservation issues through that plan. 2, we're doing outreach to family forest landowners using what we're calling non-traditional methods and innovative strategies. So things like using social marketing, which we haven't done much of with small landowners before. We're also micro-targeting our outreach to landowners based on specific landowner interests. So it's quite specific to who we're talking to and what we're talking to them about. We're also, another strategy is to build trust and long-term relationships with these family landowners. And we're going to do that through continued outreach and follow-up. And then finally, we're going to connect landowners to information and professional resources to help encourage their actions and guide their ongoing management activities over time. I would just note that I'm a forester, and as a forester, and many of my colleagues have been wedded for a long time to the idea of individual forest management plans for an individual tract of land. We also, as foresters, realize, as much as we love those plans, most landowners don't have a written plan, at least in the U.S. Only about 8% of forest landowners in the U.S., small family landowners, have plans. And those that actually do have plans, generally once they're written, they're put up on a shelf, and they sit there and collect dust. They very rarely get looked at, and they very rarely impact the behavior or the actions the landowner takes on their private land. Most of what landowners do on their private land comes from advice received from professional foresters or other natural resource managers, or we often find it comes from their neighbor, their trusted neighbor who's doing activities, and they look across the fence and have a conversation and say, oh, that's interesting, what are you doing? What can I learn from that? So we want to be able to take the focus on these individual plans and see if we can build a landscape-based plan that landowners can connect to and help them use as guidance for how they may take specific actions on their plans. So I'll conclude by just saying, how might it work? This is very early days for this project. We just started this summer. But how it could work is a landowner makes a call to one of our partners. The partner organization connects the landowner to a natural resource professional of some sort. They get out on the ground, they take a look around, they identify what the landowner's objectives are. The professional can connect them to this landscape plan, which lays out a range of options and approaches of how they might manage their land. The other important thing it does is it also helps connect that landowner to a broader set of conservation objectives for that geographic area that a range of partners are working together towards. So it helps put the landowner's objectives in the context of a broader landscape set of objectives and priorities. Once that's completed, then the idea would be to enroll this landowner in one of the programs that would lead to certification in the future, and then have a plan of monitoring and follow-up over time. There's a whole range of questions that partners do with it right now, and one of the big ones is how do we connect this approach to our current certification scheme requirements and our current individual reporting requirements that we have under our program. So in conclusion, this is not a new concept. As it's being successfully used in other places in the U.S. today. However, it is absolutely new to small landholders in the Southeast and across our country. But we think there's promise to rapidly grow certification in the next decade using this approach while accomplishing conservation goals and help maintain the flow of sustainable wood products, not only into the U.S. marketplace, but into the global marketplace. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Antonio, and I'm Secretary General of PEFC in Italy. Just to give a short introduction myself, I got a Master of Science in Forestry in Italy, a Master of Science in Agroforestry in United States, Florida, and now I'm a PhD candidate in Ecosystem Services in tree oil plantation. And why I say that? Because I was thinking that my middle-aged ancestors, when they cut down all the primary forests in our hilly region, planting a lot of olive oil trees, were not thinking about damaging the environment, and now all the tree oil plantation in our hilly regions are considered universal heritage, because they are very famous and very important. So when I came here and I saw the palm oil plantation, I just gave a very strange, in my country, oil plantation are reserved and here so considered damaging in Europe at least. So, well, I'm going to do two things. Since I'm Italian and I don't know English, I prepare a presentation. I prepare a presentation because I do not respect timing, so so like that, I know for sure that I'm going to. Okay, so forest-derived products are testimonial of their origin. This is the concept. And in Italy, we know for sure that wood is important. Paper, not anymore, because what we are doing is just importing pulp from the south of the world and part from Scandinavia and North America. But Italians connect very much to forest only with food. That means generally mushrooms or other sources of goodwill. So this is how Italians in general see forest. And what is interesting is that in our country, the population grows very fast together with the forest surface. That's just the opposite of what happened generally in the south part of the world. And if we see another picture, we see that also the agricultural fields are decreasing. So something is wrong here, right? Well, people are going back from a mountain and go to urban area, they cultivate less and less because we rely very much on import. Okay? So this is the first topic, is this connection between Italian urban people and the forests. This is the first concept. And you see that the decrease in usage of fuel wood, is the red line, is going down, 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 but we are increasing our fossil fuel usage for our energy. Again, another concept. We are getting far away from our coppice forest. Then we try to increase the payment for ecosystem services, to increase the food from forest, agritourism, fashion. It seems crazy things, but this is to bring urban people to understand that if they read a paper, it's coming from fiber that is coming from forest. We know it's too many connections, but we try definitely hard to connect the people who now live in urban area to forest management, to sustainable forest management. And now I'll give you some few examples of Italian non-wood forest projects that we, with local farmers, try to certify in certified forest. That is berries, chestnut, truffle, cork, dried mushrooms, even the cork of pines that can be dried. I'm going to show you where they are going to be dried. First of all, you know Italians are very Catholic only in Christmas time. This is true. No discussion about it. Everybody had the, how do you call it? You know, the house, the hat. So, and the rest of the year, they are, okay, it's fine. Christians are very free to choose what they want. This is the freedom of Christianity towards the other religions. So we take the freedom very well. That's what it is. So, you see my children, during Christmas time, we organize a way to see how PEFC, how forest material is included in the house. And you can see, it's everything coming from forest. In urban people. At that time, the material cost so much, we import all these things from Scandinavia, from Estonia, from Latvia. Okay? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Really good. honey from certified forest. And we do tourism. If you want to go to eat, eat some forest food, you see, you can organize a trip. You take the bus, you go to the city, you take people, you say, go out in the mountain, you eat chestnut and fresh wine. So like that, the economy goes up. Then what about mushroom? Mushroom is fantastic. So, you see, we created, together with another certified entity, a website where we indicate where are the mushrooms. So people go there, you can see in this place, you can go have more mushroom than other. But if you want to have this service, you have to pay a fee. They pay 20 euro a day to collect, to pick mushrooms. So in the end, this forest owner get 1,200,000 euros to enter the forest and to pick up maximum 3 kilos of boletus. They are happy because 3 kilos cost 40 euros. So they say, oh, we save money. So, and those money goes because it's certified forest. And I say that generally we as very physical, all of you run away when I hug you or whatever. Instead of hugging the tree, please next time hug a tree hugger, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is very interesting presentation. And it takes time, so I would like to be very brief. Today I would like to talk about the initiative that the government of Indonesia and Malaysia establishing the so-called Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, in which the objective of this council is to strengthen the cooperation among palm oil producing countries And then especially one of the main objective is to harmonize the sustainability schemes that exist in palm oil producing countries. Later on, we would like to expand our membership to include also other palm oil producing countries in Asia, and Africa, and in Central America. So as you know that right now there are at least 4 existing sustainability schemes in palm oil industry. First, RSPO, Roundtable Sustainable on Palm Oil. It is voluntary and then established by companies, NGOs, and then also the consumers companies. Another one is the ISPO, Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil, which is a mandatory certification program by the government of Indonesia, which is now still implementing. And then also there is another scheme, the so-called ISCC, International Sustainability and Carbon Certification. The certification of palm oil to be used in biofuel in Europe. And then the last one is the MSPO, Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Sustainability Scheme in Malaysia, but still voluntary basis. So although if you look at these schemes, actually, the principle of these schemes are very similar. Although there are differences, of course, but each of the scheme does not recognize other. And so, for example, if a company being certified by ISPO, it's not automatically regarded as sustainable, because then you have has to be certified by RSPO and the other way around. So actually with this existing schemes, it make process of the certification is inefficient, and frankly speaking also is costly for the company. So in addition to that, also there are still differences in definition with respect, for example, with the high carbon stock, high conservation value, even the definition of the deforestation, and so on and so forth. So I think because of that, it is really important that in the future, at least we have harmonization in this various sustainability scheme in palm oil industry, so that it less cost to the producer and for other stakeholders also. Another thing that also need to be addressed here is that so far there is no schemes that specifically address the smallholders. As you know, that 42% of the areas in oil palm plantation in Indonesia belong to smallholders, and then around 38% of Indonesian palm oil production come from smallholders. But so far, I think this scheme, still focus on the companies. So if we really want that this industry to be sustainable 100%, then we have to address also the scheme for the smallholders. So that's another issue I think that in the future we have to address. And then in this regard, the CPOPC also would like also to implement the program that facilitate the sustainability practices for the smallholders. And the other issue that I would like to talk about is that for some people or for many people, the sustainability sometimes not only about how then we manage our production in sustainable ways, but also I think the sustainability in some way can also be used as an instrument of the non-tariff barrier by certain countries. And I would like to take an example, for example, when some of the companies, Indonesian palm oil companies, are eligible to export their biodiesel, biofuel to Europe, then the Association of European Biofuel then accuse the Indonesian companies of dumping and subsidizing the export of the biofuel to Europe. So, so we think, that the accusation turned out to be not true, but then because of that accusation, then our export of biodiesel to European countries declined significantly, because then the government of European countries put this additional tariff of biofuel, Indonesian biofuel in Europe. So I think that we have to really separate here and then concentrate our focus, our effort, on sustainability, that really because of our concern on environment, on people, and on economy, not intervene, but by the political or trade, motivation, so that it will really encourage, of the retaliation, for example, by other countries on this issue. So I think, in conclusion, what I would like to emphasize here is that, first, I think in the future that we need to converge, various sustainability schemes that now exist, or at least that there is a joint certification program among a sustainability scheme on palm oil. And then the other one is that the need of better cooperation among industries and also among producing countries, in which here as reflected in the establishment of the CPOPC. And then the last one is that in the future we have to address the smallholders' concern, so that they also be a part of the sustainability practices. So with that, I would like to end my talk. Thank you very much.
On November the 4th, the Paris Agreement kicked in. As it stands, there's a need to actually have carbon storage, either as offset to try to make sure for industries that cannot have technological changes to make sure that the carbon footprint decreases. So your shipping, your flight, your solar panels will not fly your airplanes around the world, carrying 300 passengers. So those kinds of industries need carbon tied up in forest to be able to hold on. Meanwhile, at this juncture, you guys are also talking about sustainable logging. There is, in sustainable logged areas, there is less leakage of carbon as compared to illegal logging. Meanwhile, you have within your confines of the industry a chunk of PEFC certified forest, which you can actually go and look at this industry of trying to do that offset. In other words, there is an opportunity that has suddenly existed for you guys to start thinking as a conglomerate to go after this whole thing about carbon and climate change. Perhaps it's something that you can actually do more than kill two birds with one stone. You can go after the carbon. You can actually have, if the logging is carried out properly and sustainably, a sustainable livelihood for the communities living there. Thirdly, with an existing forest which is managed properly, you can actually have your wildlife and biodiversity within there itself. Thank you.
Some information to maybe responding for the present information for the development of community forest or smallholder certification scheme. Yeah, we want to share about our experience for the certification on community forest. Yeah, for smallholder and community, actually certification is required about the sustainability management for the forest resource. But the smallholder and community forest, almost all of them cannot maintain the certificate itself. So it's like information in SPLK in private forest. On 2014, there is 93 private forests has been certified using SPLK. But in the last position, in the last year, it's only 13. Maybe about 13 SPLK has been managed. So I think for the smallholder, maybe there is a big question to address. Like the community business, how develop the market access, and how to access capital, and we need to capacity building and scaling up for the product knowledge, because sometimes smallholder only manage forest as usual, and then we need support and also engagement from government, and also we need to scaling up a lot of field facilitator, because they can provide or providing for the preparation for certification by themselves. And then the last, maybe we need to thinking about the efficient and cost-effective surveillance and auditing process of smallholder.
Okay, thank you, sir. First, from Michael, would be, is there any communication in PEFC and the exporters from the US? I think Ben or others will be more appropriate to answer. But from the Indonesian side, as far as I know, because this is B2B negotiation, and the consumers from the Indonesian side, they are mostly FSC oriented for some reason. That's why what we are asking is FSC as a FSC certificate, not PEFC certificate. But I agree with you, that's a challenge that we need to address. And actually, when yesterday, when in the General Assembly, when I talked about marketing and branding, that's some of the target that I will address in the future for ICC. Pak Heri, is there any possibility to link between PEFC and ISPO? Anything is possible, but of course we need to understand there are some difficulties, there are some how do you address it? Political sensitivity that we need to realize, and we need to find the wisest way on how to connect it. One of possible idea might be if we use FAO definition of forest. I still recall it's calling for tree, and there are some people saying that palm oil is actually forest. I don't know, I'm not a forester. The forester might be able to provide answer whether it's true that palm oil is forest. If palm oil is forest, then we might have some rooms to discuss about it. But at the moment, there are still lots of sensitive issues that we need to address. But I guess the way forward is to open more dialogue, and let's see if there is any common ground that we can build from, and let's see what it goes. My final answer is just anything is possible. With regard to carbon, climate change, well, I can share with you, but it's not for the media to publish it, that the Vice President, when he called me regarding our event here, he asked me, Rajan, can you do something on carbon certification? Is your certification is only about commercial trade, or is it also about carbon certification? I told him that, sure, we haven't done anything yet on carbon certification, but I think that's one area that we actually need to look at that in the future, because I think that's one possibility. Again, anything is possible. Finally, with regard to community forest, when we are talking certification of forest management units, the usual one, there are complications, but not as many as when we are talking about community forest certification. When we are talking community forest certification, we are talking from A to Z, from you name it, from economic, from everything, and that creates some complication. But again, yes, I understand LEI has done something on it. I used to be LEI Executive Director some time ago, and actually I'm the one who initiated that in LEI. But we need to do more. We need to cover more spectrums of community forest. Don't want to go into detail because Sarah has been in here all the time. Maybe in the next session, I guess we will have more discussion on community forest certification. Thank you.
So if you'd like, we're out of time, but
Is it
give
done?
everyone 1 minute to respond to any points. It'd be nice if someone could get on Paris or something.
Well, I'll just say that since we are out of time, this is the intent here is to open a dialogue, and as a new elected board member on your behalf, I think we are quite open to your ideas, and this is just the beginning of sharing how we may move forward with some new thinking about the role that certification can play on the forest scale.
Trying to connect the several questions. PEFC's certification is focusing on sustainable forest management and traceability from forest to consumers. Therefore, running behind the needs of industry regarding carbon or whatever is not our goal. But what we can do first is to go on the 90% of the remaining forests that are not certified. So you should help us in giving more chances to forest owners and plantation owners to get a better environment, sustainable environment, that will go back to a better management and less combustion, less fossil fuels, and therefore a lower carbon footprint. So our goal as PEFC is to increase the income of forest owner and to have a better, more safe, more legal sources and more sustainable. This is at least our intention. Regarding interaction with our certification, absolutely agree. But each of us has to do the best for our work. We focus on forest-based products, and legality and sustainability. That's why Lazy Act and timber regulation in Europe, etc., rely on PEFC certification because we are instrumental to legality, at least. But you know that we are more than legality, we are sustainability.
I just like to add, Pak derajat on the question from Heri Purnomo. I think I agree, that more dialogue needed, not only among the certification scheme in particular commodity, in speaker, for example, in oil palm oil, but also across communities with forest, for example. Especially in Indonesia, I think they are very close, if not cannot be separated between forest and palm oil. But of course, I think the first thing we have to take into consideration here is that the fact that palm oil and forest is under different agencies or ministers. That makes, I think, also the dialogue is not easy. So, but I see that we can do this in the practical manners in the field, for example. If, for example, we focus in one district or one sub-district, if there is forest and then oil palm, then maybe we can have a pilot, a project, to show that actually sustainability practices can be conducted, without naming that it is for palm oil, it is for forest, but in the comprehensive fashion. So while that is very important, I think right now, I think maybe we're going to focus on the dialogue among the existing sustainability scheme in palm oil. Then the next stage, then maybe we can start, dialogue with other commodities. For example, in this regard is forest.
To ensure that the certification decision and the certification services offered by the certification bodies are independent. So this is, has been the principle so far, and that requires that any consultancy which is done actively would need to be done by independent consultancies, which of course makes it more expensive for companies to implement the chain of custody system. If you have not yet seen our chain of custody standard, this is, well, it depends on how much time you invest to get into it, but it is a technical document, and as such, to do this without a consultant can be a bit challenging depending on how complex the production processes in your company are. So that is why we, PEFC, started now with the development of an assessment to, of a chain of custody implementation toolkit, which gives some guidance to companies on how to develop their own chain of custody system, but without really providing active consultancy services. And to provide, to use it and to provide some feedback for us in the world. So I see many of you here are national governing bodies of PEFC, so I think it's important for you to keep that in mind if you can communicate that to your companies. Or we can give you a draft version directly of this implementation toolkit, and then you can forward that. But what we would like to have is some feedback on what companies think on how useful it is, so that we can use this feedback in order to improve this toolkit. In order to get that, you can either use NGVs, you can you can use my email address, or just use technical@pfc.org, and we will distribute that. One of the objectives for the revision of the chain of custody, or one of the major objectives, is that we try to see if we can make the wording of the standard a little bit easier, less technical. I mean, it's probably not, because there's always the demand for a document that is easy to understand and super flexible, but at the same time not at the same time regulates everything in detail. So of course it's not doable, but this document will be demanding to understand, but we definitely try to make the standard more accessible and to so that it's easier for companies to get PEFC certified.
That protects the natural capital. I think we're familiar with this now, this nice new term, natural capital, soil, water, air, wildlife, minerals. Looking at that as an asset is in and of itself, not only to provide products, but also ecosystem services and improve human well-being. Science-based decision-making, and as well as continuous monitoring to ensure we have continuous improvement. Now, this last part of the partnerships takes time. It takes a lot of time to develop these good partnerships. A little bit of history about the Kampar specifically. It's about a 650,000 hectare peninsula on the east coast of Rio. Back in 2007, before April began to work on this peninsula, it was rife with uncontrollable drainage from past companies who were logging in the area, and then after they abandoned the area, local communities began to utilize and expand this drainage network, which extended throughout the core area.
So I'm Harry Guru, again, a scientist at C4 and professor at the Bogor Agriculture University. My talk will be connected a lot in the context of Indonesia, even though I visited a lot of Vietnam and Laos. Well, I identify the 5 things in order to make PEFC work. I think the question is how to make it work. The importance of certificate is clear, but now how to make it work for small scale. And first, we need to talk about the market. All landscape products driven by market. If market do not want the certified product, then the producer will not produce the product. The second one is cost and benefit. Who bear the cost and who get the benefit? I think it's important also for us in Southeast Asia to talk how much money.
But does it really matter for Indonesia? So that's the question. And then going down, is it relevant to the local level? At national level, it is relevant because we have situation where many of the forests, mainly production forests, already degraded. That's to some extent already deforested. So we need to do something about that so that this trend is not going to continue. Yes, we do need areas for production, for timbers, for pulp and paper, but we do need also to keep some of the natural forests remain, because that's very important for the society in terms of the services they provide from the natural forest. But I must emphasize that it is global challenge, it is global target, but it can only work if it's sort of fit with the local context, obviously. So as a conservation organization, in the early 2000s, we were trying to, in many parts of the world basically, trying to establish what at the time so-called conservation concessions. But it didn't work out in Indonesia. We don't have as such, legal will not allow that to happen. So we come with the idea on how can we manage production forest but not for logging. Because essentially what we are going to manage is forest areas where the timber value is already reduced. So in 2004, government allowed that to happen. And now, starting from the 98,000 hectares, which was first allocated back in 2005, no government has allocated 1.6 million of production forest for ecosystem restoration concessions. So that's quite a huge target. But the implementation is very much progressing. Now we have 15 ecosystem restoration concessions or ERCs across Indonesia.
Let's see, I see some vendor from the paper factory. It's not too much in Indonesia. Maybe I don't know in foreign, but in Indonesia there's one paper factory using this. we check it in this vendor. We little bit audit to see from the water wood it takes for the paper. We check the factory. So after that, we try to do in our production process. So we ensure appropriate process and material requirement of PEFC. Every material and the location we doing like site in our factory about the line of a PEFC project. First we do it with one pilot project. After that we do it in other factory following this. This is how we apply this PEFC in our printing. And about the certification, this is our roadmap from 206. Some of the quality system of the management system already done, so we just doing some comparative because our customer cannot wait any longer.
My name is Ivan Faidi. I am from the Association of Indonesian Forest Certification. This is the graduate for smallholder certification. Actually, if we look at the condition, the big company and also smallholder is very different. Maybe easier in certificate process and big company, but for smallholder maybe before. The 3% that I think very interesting. The experience in Laos and Vietnam and also in Indonesia. I remember the evaluation of certification for community in near Yogyakarta. I think this is similar with what Pak Heri Purnomo presented. Mostly the smallholder need support from donors or from let's say funding from outside, not from own modalities or capabilities. And if the donors to finish the program, maybe the continuity of certification this also fits this problem as we look at the report. And also the market is also very important because let's say if the price of product from smallholder activities, let's say 700,000 rupiah per cubic meter for certification process, for maintaining the certification and also for preparation for certification, need might be more than quarter. Let's say from 600, need 170,000. So this big portion for the certification. I think for this condition, I think donors and the supporting from outside is all this very important. And for Heri, this already clear mentioned that. How about the group certification for smallholder? Because as we know, some area is already approved, but it's not really clear.
Great success for PEFC in growing the number of countries who are members, growing our forest area. What's more, growing that area not through double certification of forests that are already certified by FFC, but that our challenge is actually increasing the number of chain of custodies. And that really means chain of custodies that have demand closer to the final user, so there's actually fibre going through it. It's no good having chain of custody if it's not used. So, during my term of chairmanship of PEFC, I see that as being one of our big challenges: grow the number of chain of custodies and try and create a climate where we're selling more PEFC certified material through it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Touching on, sorry, my name is Thomas Dabre. I'm a National Secretary of PEFC in Belgium. And you're touching on the two main issues I find that we are facing at the moment, which are consumer recognition of the PEFC label and therefore the value for companies to get the chain of custody certification. And it is clearly PEFC's role to engage with consumers and explain to them what the label means, the guarantee that it brings. But what we found, and this is half of, well, I will come to my question, Michael, later, but what we found is that we try to provide consumers and companies with an easy explanation of what PEFC means, so that we bring PEFC to the public and the consumers. But we also see that the certified companies which are successful and really make PEFC an asset are those which embrace the material we give them, embrace the help we're ready to give them, and turn the tool into a proper asset. Now my question, Mike, was how do we get more companies to understand that? Because to be honest, 90% of the certified companies pay their certification fee and then forget about PEFC the rest of the year. And that's not going to change the market either. I mean, it should be a combined effort by PEFC, but also by certified companies to use the tool better. And that is where we struggle in Belgium, is how to really convince companies to work with us and communicating to consumers. Do you have any ideas, or does anyone in the room have any ideas?
With that, we already restored about 2.4 million hectare of forest during that time. 2.1 million hectare forest is generated from the promoting, the natural regeneration. And also we already established 0.9 million hectare industry growth and food tree. So that is quite, considerable achievement from this program. The picture now you can see is very, very different comparing to the past. A lot of plantation with the very high productivity. The natural forest has been conserved and protected, I think, quite well now. So we are still, with our objective of towards 2020, we still already design some program, and those programs are ongoing now, with the objective of achieving 45% forest cover by 2020. The second is we focus on restoration and enhancement of poor natural forest. Although Vietnam has large natural forests so far, but the quality of the forest is not so good, somehow it's quite poor. So that's why we want to enhance that forest quality for higher benefit to be produced from those forests. And you also know that we plant a lot of acacia. We are very successful in producing the acacia zooplankton in the region. But because of the poverty, the people need the very quick income from the forest, so that's why the rotation normally stops.
I cannot speak for the rest of the industry, but personally I do think that the industry needs to tone down on jargon. It needs to speak to us in a more layman terms, because you guys have been in this industry for a very long time, 10, 20 years, and you guys know what they're talking about. Versus, I'm just a regular journalist and I come from general journalism. So industry reporting is considered something very new to me, and it's good and bad in a way because everything is new to me, and everything is interesting. But I struggle so much with trying to figure out what you guys are talking about. And I think it has taken me half a day to actually really understand what landscape approach means. I had to Google, I had to talk to people, I had to is this a phrase that is very common? And then, people like us, we need to do so much research and so much unearthing and so much homework. And I do feel that you guys can actually help reduce our stress and burden by putting it out in layman terms.
One advice is that you can start looking for one that you
can relate to, or someone that shares your belief. Not all journalists out there are out to give you a bad name. That's all I can say. But also not all journalists out there take PR speak at face value.
That's the task of a journalist, to filter it out. Or what we that's your task.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great question, and I think this is something that I've been dying to tell the industry. We just have to do so much of the decoding to make things palatable to readers out there. Yeah, because if I understand my readers correctly, most of them are furniture manufacturers. They own sawmills and all this kind of thing across the supply chain. Most of them are educated, some are not educated, and even they struggle with.
But here we have a different scenario where the smallholders become an important component of the whole production process. So and it's very specifically, you cannot do anything else with their crop. You have to produce the fresh fruit bunches for farmer production. So these are some of the issues that we are trying to struggle with. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Just one last question.
I agree with the concept of smallholders, how to approach them, and in terms of the process of from the practical basis, like in the process of audit, I think for smallholders we have to not to lower the criteria and the standard, but we have to be more understanding to the process and to the nature of farmers or smallholders itself, in terms of how they treat the process of reports, monitoring, and management plan. So they will have different pattern rather than the big portion, big companies. So that's one my point of view. And the second one about the interaction with the government, because within this one aspect, we have to have somebody or someone to regulate and to determine the process of interstakeholder communication and interaction. So in this process, I think the government should be also be part of our harmonious interaction and important points. Because in some cases, governments is rather allergic to the voluntary certification part. So we have to, from PEFC, we can start to also be more closely together with the government.
Thank you.